All right, good evening, everybody. Let's get this thing called to order. Base roundtable meeting agenda. We've got a lot of internal business that I would like to visit with our roundtable. You kind of see on the agenda tonight. We're going to talk about some in-house items that we have going on. Plus, we have some grants going on here. So, a couple of housekeeping items. We do have an owl in the room. This is not our owl. This is a loner owl. We have another owl that we get for the next meeting that's stranded in Denver. We've been working 2 months to get here, but we haven't been getting there. But now we've got Ken volunteered to come grab it when he's at Colorado Water Congress. So tonight, anybody in the room here, please talk to the owl. It sounds a little bit goofy, but, and then there's a little camera on there, if you don't know, that circles around the room and it will focus on that. Please speak plainly. So very clearly, if you would, please. I know this thing does a good job, but we got a lot of folks online and the same thing for folks online. Please speak very clearly and make sure you're muted when you're not speaking. So raise your hand if you have something to say. So if we miss you, give us a gentle touch by, hey, don't forget about me. So we get it. That's the only time you get to yell at us tonight. So, but please. It's good to see everybody here. We've got a good room in here and we've got a good showing online. So also another housekeeping item. We are welcoming Katie Camlin to her first meeting tonight in person. Now, and thank you very much for working with us. We're here to work with you. You help make us whole and keep us in line. So
well, I hope so.
As we move along, I have given her the latitude to ask for a timeout. This is a learning curve for her. So if she needs to know a name, an acronym, please help her do her job so that we can get this accurately recorded and provide a better meeting. Same things for you folks online. So, and if she needs that, we'll grant her that latitude and this will continue on. So, so far it's been a wonderful transition. So
We're happy to be here.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll try to state our name when we comment or make a motion, so
Yep.
because I know you don't know everybody yet.
Yeah, not quite yet. That'd be appreciated.
or acronyms.
Yeah,
We're every new
yeah.
board has a host of acronyms and this is no different. So with that, I'm gonna turn the floor over to Katie and then she's gonna go do roll call.
Okay.
So, all right.
Yeah. Tom Gray,
Here.
Jenny Love, Julie Baxter,
Here.
Stephen Hinkenmeyer,
Here.
Alden Valdenbrink,
Here.
Ken Brenner,
Here.
Mike Camblin,
Here.
Sean Welder, Jay Sheehan,
Here. Sorry.
Sean.
Yes. Here.
Sean was here. Okay, Jay was
Yep.
not then. Oh, okay,
Jay's here too.
great. Tim Winkler,
Absent.
Casey Green, Mike Edel, Callie Hendrickson,
She was online earlier.
okay, Madison Muxworthy, here, Will Myers,
Here.
Kent Vertiz, Frank Alphone,
Here.
Rich Thompson,
Here.
Jeff Comstock,
Here.
Doug Davis,
Present.
Doug Monger,
Here, and then also I just wanted to let you know, Commissioner Macy's was appointed as the Route County rep on Tuesday, and she's on the line as well. So you didn't start off with the Route County rep. So anyhow, I'm here. Thank you.
great.
We should.
Jeff Myers,
Here.
Charles Whiteman,
Here.
Chris Collins,
Here.
Jennifer Holloway,
Here.
Travis Day, Bill Badaraka,
Sorry, this is Travis. I'm here. I was muted. Sorry about that. This is Travis.
thank you. Bill Wilskek, T. Wright Dickinson. Patrick O'Toole,
Got a message from Vince.
okay. Jonathan Bowler,
He's not gonna be here.
Yeah, he said he'd be absent.
Yeah, he sent us that.
and Jackie Brown.
He said she'll be late.
That's good.
Who is the Rio Blanco?
This is
Commissioner-
Callie.
I don't think Rio Blanco County's identified one. They just sworn in an officer last week, so. Actually, yeah, it was just last week, so. I've not been informed yet. Is there a representative from Rio Blanco County, Commissioner?
This is Chris. I'm not that I'm aware of yet. Is that right, Callie?
Correct. As far as I know, there is not one at this point, but I don't know that. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm late, but I'm here.
Make it noted, Callie's tardy.
Okay.
So-
I'll write it
Nothing
down.
new.
No worries. And we'll do our best if we see you signing in late, to get you added to the agenda. So I know we're ready to go rock and roll to the next. So I know we do. Item number 3, we have approved, modify the agenda. I believe there's one item that we have to make a correction on. It'd be 7B. That Ken shared it with me. It didn't get carried over on the agenda. But Peppo has requested to push that back to another date.
March, please.
To March, okay, and then there was a request by Steve. Steve has a few slides. He's asked for about 5 minutes to visit with the roundtable on projects, and I know this is a
55 for quick presentation and 10 minutes of just. If I could get some opinions.
okay, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so
Give him an inch.
yeah, I know.
Well, you should try.
So that's the only correction I have, and I'm just calling that projects, because I didn't have a name for it right offhand. I'm sorry, I don't have that here. But Steve will be presenting that at that point, so, and he will be looking for Basin Roundtable input, so. Like I said, we had a lot of Basin Roundtable discussions tonight. Interact with us. We've got to make some decisions tonight. There's some things happening in our part of the world here that can impact you tomorrow and your generations to come. That's why we're here. Let's get our message together. Let's carry it forward. So, and we're looking at, we got an IBCC discussion as well, as I'm backing up here a little bit for the agenda. But that we've got a representative that we need to get for there. But I want to visit with some folks on a little bit about the IBCC. What is it? But that's a job that we've got to get filled. There's some stuff happening that we got to have our representation. I don't want us not being represented. So we do a good job about that. So someone online have something? All right, thanks. So with that, I'm looking for a motion with that addition of item 7B.
Brett
that
approves
change?
the amended agenda with the modification of 7B.
Second. Yeah, let Jennifer have it.
Okay. All right. So with that, motion a second. Any other discussion? Motion to approve the agenda as amended. I'll signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Next item. We have 2 minutes. These are going to be done in potentially as 2 separate motions. We have some minutes adjusted that need to be done in September. And I believe those minutes have been amended. They are with you on your packet, but also on our Basin Roundtable website. So I'm looking for any discussion on those minutes.
I move we accept this written in the packet.
Steve gave a motion to approve the minutes. Got any second?
Second.
For September 14, 2022. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of adopting the minutes from September 14, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, state nay. Ooh. Motion passed. Now we're gonna move on to the November 9 minutes. Discussion, corrections, additions, that need to be done. Looking for a motion to approve them then.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 9th meeting as written.
I'll second. Mike Camlin, second. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of adopting the minutes as of November 9, 2022, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Excellent, thanks, folks. Now we have an update. I know we've got a few folks from the CWCB. I missed one in there. I don't have her name right offhand. We have a.
Ashley Garrison.
Hi, Ashley. Forgive me. I thought you were gonna be on the road. Well,
Jenna's on the road, then we wouldn't let her in.
forgive me.
Locked door.
Forgive me, Ashley, but we have 3 people from the CWCB. I don't know if Jackie's with us yet or not. But we were gonna put Jackie's, we kind of moved her around on the agenda to put her in with the CWCB update. Because that's her primary role with us anymore, is our representative of the CWCB, so. And I don't know if Jeff is here. Jeff, are you online with us tonight too?
Yes.
Yep, I'm here.
Hello, Jeff. Well, I'm gonna start out with you and then we can move the gavel around and introduce yourself. So it's glad to have you here. But please, what we're looking for is for you tonight is to introduce yourself, kind of give us an idea of your new capacity as well that you'll be serving within the CWCB. So thank you for joining us. Yeah, I'm sorry, start. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Did you want me to start or you want Ashley to
Go
introduce
ahead.
herself first? Okay,
Go ahead.
yeah. Let's get this going here. What? Let's see, that's not what I wanted to share. Okay, that looks better. You can see the PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so just go ahead. Is there a question already? Haven't even started yet.
Nope, you're good.
No, okay. All right, so just a few quick updates for you all. We're getting the water plan finished, so we've been kind of all heads down finishing that up. I believe it went to the printer today. So wanted to alert you all to a water plan celebration event that we're hosting in downtown Denver on January 24th from 5 to 9, kind of right after the Tuesday of the board meeting, right before Water Congress. Hoping you all can make it to help celebrate all the great work that's being done across the state, as well as all the hard work and fantastic partnerships that went into the tech update, the BIP update, and now the water plan. That event is going to be held at Improper City, and I will drop some links in the chat here when I'm done. There'll be a link to the Eventbrite webpage where you can, let us know that you're coming. Food and drinks will be available for purchase there. It's a really great venue with a lot of space to accommodate, all the folks. And there'll be a few short presentations. I think also we'll be recognizing the Basin Hero Awards at that event. So if you haven't put forth your vote or nominations for Basin Heroes for the Yampa-White-Green Basin, you can scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now and vote for your Basin Heroes. And those are folks who, you think need to be recognized for their exemplary water industry service, outstanding contributions to the basin, the BIP, the water plan, those types of things, or just really great innovative thinking, driving projects and doing good work on the ground in the basin. Some other just kind of housekeeping things. Chris Sturm wanted me to mention that the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program, the applications for those grants I think was scheduled to go live today. But that'll be another link that I drop in the chat for that website. He also wanted me to let you all know that the template scope of work is complete. And you can check all that out at the Wildfire Ready Watersheds website. I know he presented to this group, well, I guess last year now, but just wanted to throw that out there. Also, in the chat here, when I'm done, I'm going to be dropping a couple other funding resources. If you all recall the Colorado Water Opportunity Fund Navigator, there's another repository, managed by the Department of Local Affairs that not only houses natural resource and water grant opportunities and funding opportunities, but also a lot of local on the ground community-based funding opportunities. So I wanted to provide that to you all just so you have it, and there might be things that you can utilize there to keep the great work going, in addition to WSRF and water plan grants and all the things that we do here at the CWCB. We have had a lot of questions coming to us during this first round of statewide grants specifically, but this first round of WSRF operating under the 2023 guidelines revisions, particularly around the 10% basin contribution required for a statewide grant request. And so I just wanted to clarify that the intent of the 10% required from the basin is 10% of the total WSRF project cost. And then that 10% can be used by the applicant as part of their 25% match. So we're working on clarifying the guidelines and creating some tools to help project proponents, WSRF coordinators, and other roundtable members try to help kind of navigate the criteria there and help just calculate what those different percentages are and things like that. So there'll be a WSRF calculator. We're also working on some frequently asked questions documents for water plan grants for WSRF, and kind of a one-pager showing like what we typically fund, what we don't fund, those types of things, just to make it a little bit easier for project proponents, roundtable members to navigate all the different grant opportunities that the CWCB offers. So more information on that to come. Just wanted to give you all a heads up that we are working on that and just clarify the guidelines there a little bit. Let's see here. Also, wanted to talk about the governor's proposed budget a little bit. So just to reiterate, it's still in the proposal phase. We won't know if it passes until the spring. It's working its way through the legislature and the General Assembly and things like that. But I'm sure you all saw an email, or at least the IBCC folks saw an email from Dan Gibbs about an addition to the governor's proposed budget. So originally he proposed about $5 million coming from the general fund for water plan grants, in addition to 10.5 from Proposition DD and 2 million from the construction fund. So with this recent revision, he has increased the amount coming from the general fund for water plan grants by 7.5 million. So equaling about 12.5 million just from the general fund as a placeholder for things in the projects bill. So that's really a testament to all the great work being done on the ground by you all and across the state and all the other basins. And so, just wanted to reiterate that this is because of all the work that you do, and keep up the great work, and we can keep the money funneling in. I think that is all I had to update you all on. As far as WSRF budget goes, I know you all like to hear about that. Happy to provide some insight there. But I'm sure Steve is probably going to talk about it as well. But I think I saw here, let me get out of here. Let's just take any questions on these updates real quick while I pull up my notes on your guys's WSRF account.
Anybody in the room?
I have a question, but I'm not sure. I direct it to Jeff or maybe Steve. How many of our projects that are WSRF funded that we don't already contribute 10%? There isn't hardly any, is there?
We have contributed about 25% at a minimum to almost every project out there. The two that you will hear tonight are because the rules changed in October for this. You know, we used to have a state fund match. Now and then they did away with it. Well, now it's back. And the state is able to fund 75% from the state WSRF fund. And we have to provide from the roundtable 10% of that match. And the grantee can minimally put in 15% match. But they're only for certain projects, which are infrastructure and drought resiliency. Okay. I've got a slide that'll go over that, Mike.
All right.
That's correct. So I'm showing, it looks like 3 projects from this basin for that were submitted at the December 1st deadline. So if that sounds right, if those are approved, that'd be a total of $343,962 from the Basin Fund. Doesn't look like any of those projects that are slated for the March board meeting have any statewide requests, but that would leave your basin balance just north of about 650,000, just north of that.
Yeah, that's about right, Jeff. You know, I'll show you updates with what we're gonna vote on tonight. We're here tonight.
Anybody online? Otherwise, I have one, if I could, please. Were there any changes made to the state water plan as it was finalized? We saw a draft, and there was a comment period, but the final draft, is it the same as the draft that was out for public review?
Oh no, we incorporated a lot of comments. I think the last number I saw was just over 1,000 changes, recorded changes or something like that. But yeah, there was some changes while we were incorporating the comments from the public.
And were those changes brought to the public to kind of review again before final draft?
So no, those will go to the board to review and hopefully approve at the January board meeting.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, Ashley.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ashley Harrison. I'm the new water plan grant manager, and I'm I live in Summit County, and I'll be covering projects in the Yampa-White-Green, the Colorado, and the Gunnison River basins. So I'm about 3 weeks in. So right now, myself and there were 3 other water plan grant program managers hired. We're in the process of reviewing the water plan grant applications that were submitted on December 1st, and then bringing those applications to the board in March. And then, once we start getting those projects, underway, I'll be, helping do the contracting on those and, managing those projects as they go through the process. And then as I get more into my role and understand, more about how everybody works and what is going on in your basins. I'll likely be working with folks to help develop water plan grant project applications a little bit. I'll be working with Jeff and the other folks to help recommend which grant program or which funding program might be the best opportunity within the CWCP and other local, state, and federal programs. But don't ask me any specifics yet, because I will not have an answer for you. But yeah, I'm excited to be here, and I'm really in learning mode right now. I'm in my previous life. 5 weeks ago, I was a forester, but I understand that trees need water, and that's kind of about as far as I've got. So I'm really excited to learn from all of you guys, and seems like there's been a lot of cool things going on in this basin with the Three Rivers. So, if you have any questions, I think you've got my contact information. I can make sure that you get it, but I've got a cell phone and an email.
And I know you're still learning by doing.
Yes.
But how can the Basin Roundtable anticipate interacting with you?
I think that right now I think I'll be working pretty closely with Jeff and the other Ben and Chris Sturm and Kevin and those folks. So I've already had a meeting with the IW.
She's had a couple of meetings, she's met with
Yeah.
several of us, and she's also came to the IWMP meeting class.
So I think, right now, getting a sense of kind of what projects you think you got coming down the pipe for water plan grants. And I can help you, make sure that those fit into those buckets. Or if there's some things that are like a little bit longer term and you're not quite ready to bring up for funding yet, we can start working on how to get those funded. So that's what I think for right now, as I learned by doing.
So we actually wrote letters of support for 2 water plan grants that got submitted on the December 1 grant date, which is the Bear River Park boat ramp and the Water Smart grant. Both were going to apply to that, and we'll be talking about a letter of support today for Rivers Edge West that they're applying for. They've actually already applied on December 1st for a water plan grant.
Yeah, and so I think I know that this round, there's a larger ask for funding, that there was funds available, and so I'm still learning about how things will be funded in this round, and then if they'll request folks to resubmit in the next round, or what will happen if things aren't fully funded. But I did see you guys' letters of support on those projects.
Okay, so we got 2, and we'll hopefully have a third after tonight.
Okay,
She wins the award for farthest commute today.
She does.
well, I'm thankful that you braved it. And
Well,
you're with us while some other CWCB folks, I'm just ready. I get it. No worries. So it's good to see you here, and thank you for joining.
yes, thanks for having
Please
me.
feel free to reach out to our membership and to interact and introduce. We've got a very diverse group here that all have funding needs, but also a lot of projects on their mind. And how the hell do we move these things forward is a lot of the hard part, and funding's the critical factor that usually brings us to it. So, and funding it drives everything, of course. So, Jackie, I don't know if you're with us yet. I haven't heard if you signed in. I know she said she was going to be late. I was going to try to bump her in with the CWCB here, but if she's not, we'll swing around and catch up to her in a little bit then. So, And then we have item 6 on the agenda. Anything, let me back up, anything else for the CWC before I move on? Don't see no raised hands, so, all right, we'll keep going. We do have, item 6 for some public comment. I've not had anybody contact me about public comment, but if there is somebody that would like to address this, please feel free to do so. Raise your hand online if you got something you want to say. Okay, moving forward. We're gonna move on to some roundtable projects that we got here, item 7A. The White River Management Plan and PBO. I know there was a committee that was thrown together in the November Basin Roundtable. That, some of them I know we had about 8 or 9 members on there. Some came in afterwards, but they did provide some feedback. I don't know if Kara's online. I thought I seen David Graff was there. I don't know if Kara, there she is. Kara's with us. And so we were gonna kind of open it up to the roundtable membership. Again, like I said, roundtable discussion tonight. That did provide comment or has comments. And didn't provide written comments on the White River Management Plan and the PBO. And we would like to take a few moments and give those individuals to report to the roundtable some of their comments that they had. So I am on the committee. I'm going to reserve my comments as I submitted them as a representative for other areas. But I know we had Callie did some reviewed that. I know Doug did. T. Wright Dickens did, Vince Wilczek, Tim Winkler. Well, I know, Steve, you did too. I read some of your comments. So if I missed somebody, I'm sorry. I don't have the actual list, but Kara, do you have anything that you would like to jump in with?
No, I don't. Thanks, Alden. Yeah, we got some great comments last round and they were very substantive, which is wonderful, but it has slowed our progress a little bit. So we hope to come back to you all in March with a little bit more of an update. But for now, I will turn it over to those that reviewed if they have any comments.
Because I know we did not anticipate, because I'm on the planning team with these folks here for the past 8+ years. Which is great. I mean, these were really in-depth comments. But it's gonna make it now take 9 years. So I got another year to go to work on this thing. But regardless, we've got an end in sight. But it's great to get that type of comments back because that's what builds a better plan. So I'm gonna shut up. And anybody in the room that read it, do they have any comments you would like to add at this time and share with the roundtable? Other than what's been provided?
You know, I thought it was a really thorough job. There were some great comments by some of the more professional commenters, you know, it was well-rounded. I thought it read really well. I didn't see the last time I looked at it, which was the day that the last comments were due. There didn't seem to me like there was a lot of additional work, but I don't know how to, some of those comments I didn't know how to address either.
I get it.
Yeah.
Online, anybody? Well, the roundtable's been identified as one of the, what is the name of that group? The working group, I believe, is what they are. And so it's been carried forward, and this is to where we agreed initially on that the PBO would be brought back to the roundtable for your review, because this is a priority IPP that we've been moving forward in the White River Basin. So we wanted to make sure that we keep you all involved with it, more so than has been done in other areas. So
will we see the changes in March or April to the document before it goes out for public comment?
It will be available on that same SharePoint site if you'd like to access it.
Okay, but who will they contact you to?
They'll contact the committee to let us know. So
Okay.
we can share with the whole roundtable if you want, and then the whole roundtable can have the final document. Would that sound appropriate, Karen?
Sure, but that just to add to that, it won't necessarily be final until it goes to the recovery program for their review and acceptance. So that won't be March. It'll have to go through their technical committees and then their management committee as well. So you're more than happy to provide the final report, but just a heads up, it won't be March.
Okay. I was trying to push it along for you all,
We are, we're moving along. You know, 7 years ago, he said, oh, it'll be 18 months. So, yeah, but it's been an enlightening and learning process, so. David, do you have anything you would like to add on this? And Kara, is there anything additional?
No, I think Kara hit on it pretty well, and the committee review, you know, that came up. We have concurrent responsibility to sort of look at it from the water acquisition committee as well as our biology committee, and then get sort of formal approval of the document and next steps in the process. And that takes a little while. We're also doing, you know, concurrent with that, we're doing our work planning for the next couple of years. So to the extent there are activities in the management plan that we can integrate, you know, now into future activities, we're working on that as well.
Okay. Nothing else, we'll move forward. I seen Jackie joined us. I thought I seen her hiding in the corner up there. And Jackie, if you recollect, I did fool you with the CWCB update. And if you with the roundtable's approval, I'd like to back up and allow Jackie to go ahead and provide her update to our roundtable. Thank you for joining us. Jackie, you have the mic.
Thank you. Good afternoon or evening now. Thanks for letting me be a little bit late. A lot late, I guess it is. So CWCB update for this meeting is a little bit awkward because we have not received the agenda for our upcoming meeting, which is the week of Water Congress, which I know many of you will attend. And our meeting is scheduled for the 23rd and 24th of January. So of course, the big news for the month is that we will be finalizing and approving, as long as the board all agrees, the 2023 Colorado Water Plan. And I think we have discussed, you know, a couple different occasions prior to and then during public comment of the types of public comment we were receiving as a board and how we handled that public comment. We talked about a little bit in November, sort of what to expect coming up. We'll also be giving a presentation at Water Congress for those of you that will be there on, you know, sort of the big changes to the plan from the 2015 version and, you know, why the plan is laid out in the 10-year fashion that it is and where we're headed for the next 10 years and how we'll handle the annual operations plans as well. Of course, as most of you know, we've been busy also talking about the upper Colorado Basin UCRC, Upper Colorado River Commission, and their report out, which was made public in December on the demand management feasibility report. So some of you may have heard of that. I wasn't able to join Big River today either, so maybe you talked about a little bit of that there, but that conversation will continue into this meeting upcoming in January. And so I really was hoping that I would have the agenda to share with you guys and highlight the points that you can, you know, join us on YouTube during the meeting or after, but I don't have it yet. So I can't give you any more information there. And then another thing that's happening, which happens every January, is the workshop for in-stream flow recommendations. And for those of you who have taken a look and had time to peruse that, you'll notice that there are definitely some recommendations in Division 6, and some of those have been postponed until 2024, and some of them remain on the schedule moving forward. So as I went back through my notes, I think those are kind of the big key things, but I'm certainly happy to, like I said, I don't know what you talked about in Big River. I'm certainly happy to go over some of the updates that have happened since CRUA, Colorado River Water Users Association meeting in December. If you've already felt like you've gotten that information for the evening, we do not have to do that. And I'm also happy to take any questions anyone may have or cede the time back to you all. So.
Well, Jackie, I think we're gonna have a discussion about some of the bigger river stuff we talked about with the UCRC as well a little bit. And I think it'd be great if you jump on in if there's something you would like to add that maybe there's an inaccuracy or something like that at that time, or something new to add that we may not be aware of. So.
You bet.
Am I correct with that? Yep. So, all right. And I appreciate that. So questions, any feedback for Jackie?
So we'll address this topic a little deeper further in the meeting then.
Yes. Yes, sir.
The Big River, yeah, on the agenda item, I'm happy to support that discussion when it comes time.
And that might actually make a more applicable discussion anyway at that time, so.
Cool. You know what, one other thing that just came to mind with the audience that's here tonight is that Corinne Trick, who has been on the board for the North Platte Basin, the CWCB board, she has resigned effective immediately. And so if any of you have acquaintances or any sort of relationships with folks in the North Platte that you think may be interested in serving on the board, I'm happy to chat with them or just send them, through the very unique boards and commissions application and website that's sometimes a little hard to find. So, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I know we're close with that basin. And so if anybody had anybody they wanted to put forward or make the opening known to, please go ahead and do that.
Jackie, has anybody talked with Ty Wattenberg? I think he's chairing their roundtable, isn't he?
He is. I know, this is just me putting the feelers out, so I'm not sure who. I don't know who has talked to who during the period of time that this resignation has taken place. So you don't need to give me names right now, but I wanted to just put it out there and do that. So you had some insight.
Anyone online have anything? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward. Thanks, Jackie. Feel free to jump in. And we'll move to the agenda item 7B for the change for that. Steve has a couple of slides he's going to be sharing. Yeah, can you pull that? And at the end here, Steve's going to be looking for some input, specific input from the roundtable. So let's speak freely. Let's give Steve some feedback because I know there's been several conversations going around it. They've been having several refinements to get this moved forward on projects and we need some feedback from the group. So. This one, right?
Yes, sir. So as probably everybody is aware, Ken Brenner and Chuck Whiteman and I have been meeting since September, talking about what sort of effort a proposed project committee or comparable effort for the Yampa-White-Green Basin Roundtable would look like. We started last September, kind of threw it out. Got some pretty blunt feedback. Took that back, got a little more feedback.
went to the, came in the November meeting. Still didn't quite, we didn't have time on the agenda, but we just kind of brought it up towards the tail end of the meeting. We actually got some pretty good input from the grants committee. And now we're here and I'm basically gonna talk, go ahead, Patrick, to the next slide. So I've got one slide that I want to talk through and I want to spend less than 5 minutes doing it, so. My version of, and Chuck and Ken, of why we need some sort of projects committee for the Basin Roundtable. And I don't know if everybody's aware, but our grant process, once we vote for a grant, Alden writes a letter, sends it into the CWCB, and that grant is lost to us. Those people, they go to the meeting, they get their, at some point, they get their money, whether it's contract or PO, they go and do the grant. And the only time that we really even hear from them is we request a 6-month report that we seldom get. And our Basin Roundtable schedule has been so busy that we don't have time for people to come back in and give us a kind of a post-construction or a post-study or whatever they're doing, sort of update. So they disappear for us. So right now we have 15 projects and about $1.3 million of ongoing grants that the CWCB has given to folks on our behalf. And the 3 projects that are going to be heard in March, and perhaps the 2 more that we will hear about tonight, there's potentially another 5 projects and another $1.5 million of ongoing projects. And we're really doing no grant follow-up whatsoever or project follow-up. I'm doing the best that I can, but I just don't have the time to round up all of the information for all of this. So I think that we as a Basin Roundtable are one of our biggest functions is supporting the grant process. And I think that to me, I'm a business guy. You know, I'm gonna have 20 projects and $3 million, nearly $3 million worth of projects ongoing. I'm gonna want to know, are those on track? So I think we need to have some follow-up on the successful grant approvals. A lot of our proponents find out that they get stuck with permits or they get stuck with funding issues or whatever else. So they go in and ask for a project extension. So we know that the status of the grant, once it gets approved, is, you know, they're just gonna do it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. But if those projects get extended, we often don't hear about it. I think this group, this projects committee or whatever you want to call it, could help review those 6-month grantee reports. So they're giving them to the state, because if they don't give the report to the state, they don't get their money. So the state's getting them. The WSRFs are getting their reports. They're just not coming to us. I think this group could help reflect updates and progress on Yampa-White-Green projects pages. So if you haven't looked at our website lately, Patrick's got 2 project pages out there, one for projects that are completed and one for projects that are ongoing. And he tries to keep up with them, and I help him. We put together a spreadsheet, but it takes a lot of time, and sometimes we just don't have enough time to keep them upright, right? And I think there's this projects committee or whatever we call it could provide kind of a progress report where here's the grant.
what do they do? Are they stuck for money? Are they waiting on permits? Do they not have a water right? Or is their project just about done? I think this group and the meetings that they have could be a venue for in-person reports from grant recipients about their projects, whether it's an update or a final report. I've had a lot of grantees that have come back and said, so you gave us a grant 3 years ago, we're final with the project. Would you like us to come back and give you a report? And it's sad that I have to tell them, no, we don't have time. We don't have time to talk about anything at our roundtable meetings like that. And I think that's terrible that we don't. But we don't. I mean, we struggle nobody wants extra meetings. We have 3-hour meetings. Nobody wants any more meetings, but there's things that I think people would be interested in hearing about. And then I think they could document and review completed and ongoing grant funded projects, confirm spending as approved at the time of the grant. So, you know, do they give money back? Do they have to go out and find new funding? All those sorts of things. And then I think there ought to be some accountability and or compliance with the Yampa-White-Green BIP projects. So the BIP, you know, I have a kind of a sheltered view of the BIP. I participated a little bit, but the BIP has a lot of IPP projects, which are identified projects and processes. So there's 29 tier 1, which are in theory shovel-ready projects, and 12 tier 2 projects that were identified in the BIP. 22 of the 29 back in 2021, which is when the last update to the projects in the BIP was made. 22 of the 29 were said they were being implemented. And there's over $40 million in BIP projects that were identified out there. So we've given out maybe $500,000 in a year. But this will be a big year for us, I think. But there's some of these projects that we said, you know, this would really help our basin, are out there being done, and maybe nobody in the room knows where those are at. I think some people do, but all of us don't. And then I think we can track the identified projects that have not requested Basin Roundtable funding that are being implemented either with water plan grants or other funding. But there's a lot of projects that are going on, and there's a lot of people giving money in our basin. And my opinion is we're not keeping up as maybe the best that we should. I think these meetings of this committee, if it becomes one, would be a basin-wide venue for open discussion, information sharing, and collaboration in support of projects that advance the Yampa-White-Green BIP and the Colorado Water Plan. And it's sad to say we don't have enough time at our Basin Roundtable meetings to have those discussions. I mean, people come early, and PEPO or Big River committees going on, people would stay late, but you know, it's already 9 or 9:30. People like Alden's probably got a 2-hour drive home tonight. So there's just not a lot of collaboration that goes on, and that's a shame because we're a really diverse group. I think we have lots of opinions. It would be good to share some of those. I think there's an opportunity for institutional support for reviewing and assisting grant applications and ideas submitted for Yampa-White-Green Basin projects, not necessarily to our WSRF grants, but through some of the other grants. And then I think it would help to have more coordination with the CWCB. The new regional water plant grants manager, Ashley Garrison, is new on the job. But even maybe get involved in Jackie more, because she attends all the CWCB meetings. So those are the things that I see that we could do better. You can go to the next slide, Patrick. So now, I guess now I'd like to get some thoughts from the group, and I just kind of threw out, you know, some primer questions for people to give some input on. But we've kind of gone around, kind of a bit around in a circle, and I know one of the comments that we actually heard at the grant meeting was, hey, every time we hear about this projects committee, it changes. Well, it changes because you guys are all giving us input, and a lot of it's been good input. I'd like to think that we listened to some of it, because otherwise we wouldn't be out soliciting it, so any comments? I can tell you there was a lot of head nodding. I gave a much longer presentation at the Yampa IWMP meeting. And talked about this process and the accountability, and I think there was a lot of head nodding that, yeah, we are starting to give a lot more money out, and we should be kind of keeping an eye on what we're doing. And you know, we're depending on the CWCB, and I'm not so sure that they're not depending on the financial end of the state of Colorado to track some of this stuff. Yeah, Jeff?
Well, Steve, I said it on that workshop, but you did a fantastic job reviewing this. I am a full support of additional accountability, because we just haven't had it at all. And you don't handle that kind of money without any level of accountability. There was, so I'm in full support of that. You also know on that call, I would have preferred, I still would prefer that the Basin Roundtable itself be that accountability. But if there's not, I understand with the size of the roundtable, that would literally mean if we need 3 or 4 extra meetings a year to do it, that would mean a commitment from the roundtable to add that to your schedule. If that commitment's not there, it's certainly not worth stopping this. You should absolutely have a separate group, of projects group, or whatever you want to call it, or an extension of the grants committee. I don't care how it works, but that accountability needs to happen. And if it can't happen through the roundtable, it needs to happen through a committee. But there was some confusion on the call about whether that integrated water planning committee would somehow continue. And I think through conversations afterward that it should be clarified that IWMP committee is dead.
Well, so the IWMP, and I don't want to take Ken's thunder, but the IWMP voted, they got a communication plan out through the next 2 years. But the thought was they might be able to spend the money that we allocated for that communication of the IWMP report by this December, or maybe into early next year. And then I think that in theory, the project money would nearly run out.
Yeah, we want the IWMP to end. And we heard that feedback loud and clear last week, especially from the Colorado River District representatives that were there. But we do have money left. And it's probably close to $40,000. So that the thought is that, you know, it's not like one will end and the other will start. There's going to be a period of time here. Like if the goal of today is to have the group say what you just said. Yes, there's a need to do this, that we need to provide this accountability. That a lot of these are good questions to ask, and we have some more responsibility. What we don't know tonight, and what we won't figure out tonight, is exactly what to do. So if we get the nod to say, yes, bring back a more formal proposal in March about what that structure might look like, how we transition to this projects committee or an expanded Basin Roundtable schedule or whatever it is, you know, we'll bring back probably several options. We'll bring those back, and in March we'll make a decision. say, yeah, let's do X. And that money from the IWMP, at least as the proposals that I am aware of today, I've discussed with Hunter, who's our representative at the Colorado River District, who's our fiscal agent. And that he is comfortable with spending those funds on whatever we collectively decide to do with this topic.
Great, okay. We got some folks online here that want to ask some questions too, so I'm gonna go to Sonia Macy's first. Sonia, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Welcome.
I'm happy to see you're not bashful or shy, that you're willing to integrate. So jump on in and please share with us what's on your mind.
Well, thank you. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. This is my first interaction with my new county commissioner computer, and the camera doesn't seem to want to cooperate. So I apologize for that. But I really appreciated the presentation on this, and I think more accountability is always good. I really appreciated the analysis of sort of some of the challenges that you're facing in terms of managing these grants in a way that could be a little more useful to the Basin Roundtable and also to the grantees. So I just wanted to offer that I'm fully supportive of this, and if there's anything I can do to help, I have some experience with managing grants and that sort of thing. And obviously I'm new to the Basin Roundtable as a person who would be on the inside of it, so I don't know how you're currently doing things, but I would be happy to volunteer to get some time with the group to figure out how do we address this, because I think what's been brought up is definitely I don't want to say a weakness, but an opportunity for improvement. And I think it would be something that would be good for the grantees and for the entity as a whole. So just offering a little support for this, and not sure what that looks like. To me, it would be difficult to imagine that I myself could pull something together before March that people could vote on, or, not knowing your processes at present. But I think this is on the right path, and I just really appreciate you guys continuing, whether or not I have the time or energy to support it. And if I do, I'm in. It might just be after I get a little more versed in the work that you're doing.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. Steve, I'm gonna look over your shoulders. I think Callie.
Yeah, Kelly.
Callie, you have your hand up, and I think Chris, you threw it up after her. So Callie, what's on your mind?
Thank you, guys. Sorry, I'm not there in person. I actually didn't realize this was going to be on the agenda tonight. I guess, again, accountability, I hadn't heard that was the primary focus in the past, but I will tell you, I support accountability 100%. I will absolutely support what Jeff said. It needs to be the Basin Roundtable that holds them accountable. We've talked about having additional Basin Roundtable meetings going monthly. I would much rather go down that road and have those presentations, as often as we need to. One of the other things, as far as how do we get people to be accountable, I get it. I understand that that's a challenge, especially for volunteers. I think if it was made very clear that you would not be eligible for another grant if you did not provide your reports as appropriate, would help that a lot. But then when they do call you, you need to give them the opportunity. And so that's where I think we have the additional meetings to do that, rather than going to a and it could be a committee of the roundtable, but I would prefer it just be the roundtable as a whole, because that's what we're all committed to doing here. From the other piece of it that I thought where we were going with this was more of a watershed coordinator was a part of the conversation at one time, or a committee to help with that and so forth. I guess I will reiterate what I did to the grants committee before. It sounds to me like the Yampa Basin definitely needs a committee that helps to drive the efforts that they've pulled forward so far and that they think that's in their IWMP. And potentially they need a coordinator for that. But I think that needs to be in the Yampa Basin. And then once that gets up and going, that would give us the opportunity to work back and forth between the two basins when we need to, but not have somebody from different basins trying to coordinate something in the other basin. So I will leave it at that for now.
Chris?
Yes, thank you. So a couple thoughts right off the top of my head. Steve, I really appreciate the time that you and Ken and Chuck putting this together. I do like the idea of the the accountability. I'm trying to scroll through stuff, but I can't do it one talk. But the accountability and maybe updates on different grants that are awarded. However, my thoughts is that I don't know if you need to make another committee. Maybe that's something that can and should be discussed amongst the existing grant committee members. How do we allocate, or can we allocate time to this? Because I think that is a good thing for all of us to know. And like you said, you're a businessman and you're managing 30 projects. You kind of want to know where you're at on everything. So I do agree with Callie. I mean, with the fears of or not really fears, but what exactly were we looking for? Are we looking for as far as a coordinator type position? But if it's for grant accountability, I think it's a great idea. I'm a little confused about the discussion and information and sharing and collaboration. I think that's something that we all do amongst ourselves. I mean, I know I may not talk to everyone, but I do see people from time to time, and at least, I think all of us are always trying to learn from each other, and these meetings are a great tool for that. If we can go, I don't like more meetings, but an additional maybe going monthly meetings with maybe just shorter meeting would be good. But I do have a question. I mean, you've referenced the BIPs in here, and so what if I'll give you an example. Down in the White River right now, we've got a project going on that is outside of any funding that anyone's, to my knowledge, is pursuing right now. Is what we call our big ditch project. In fact, we've been awarded a grant from the River District, and I believe we're waiting on another grant. So while that project fits the BIP goals, is that something that you're going to want anyone and everyone that has BIP type projects to be a part of this, or is it just groups or individuals that are working through the roundtable for grants? And I will stop talking. Thank you.
So the quick answer to that, Chris, is both the Yampa IWMP and the White River Integrated Water Initiative are identified in the BIP as IPPs. So if those projects are being thought about from your pack in the White River and whatever, it would be nice to understand maybe you could share some information with this group, but we're not going to get involved with that unless there's some need for the Yampa-White Basin as a whole to weigh into something, if you need a letter of support or whatever, but that's not what this group would be about. This group would be about understanding everything that's going on, trying to understand all of the water projects that are going on, particularly those that are Yampa-White-Green grants or basin IPPs, because the BIP is actually a plan. That's our plan for the next 7 years as to how potentially we could make make improvements in the Yampa-White-Green Basin.
We're out of time, but I'm gonna take Sean, he's had his hand up for a bit. And we got 3 more hands going up in the room now, so Sean, what's on your mind, sir? Thanks for, good to see you today.
Thank you. I think following up on, there's a lot of money that's being dished out to various grant projects. And I think it's a no-brainer that we would want to know how effective the use of that money is by some type of feedback. I'm not going to use the term accountability, but maybe some medium, some form of following up and getting a better picture of how effective we are by providing these grants. To me, that's a no-brainer. And over the last several years, I don't know if it's maybe 5 now, that I've sat through these long meetings, and a lot of times at the meetings, there are water engineering firms, companies that have been given big chunks of time at our meetings to solicit their products. I feel like the work that Steve, Ken, and Chuck are doing is probably, their efforts, at least in general, are more valuable to me than listening to a lot of solicitations and other, time-consuming, presentations. So anyway, I wanted to be brief and say that, but I'm all for it, and I 100% support some type of not accountability, but understanding of where our money goes and how effective the outcome of those grants is. Thank you.
Sean. Mike?
I'm sorry, I just got to speak up. Well, what I wonder is, Ashley's got a new position here. She's gonna be dealing with all these grants and all these people. Is that part of your job description, to give us an update at each meeting saying what's going on with these grants?
So I will only be managing water plant grants. So I'm not gonna be part of WSRF or any of the other funding sources.
Okay.
So as we're kind of working through this and part of your discussion, I would imagine that I can be certainly providing an update as, maybe not monthly, maybe, every 6 months. Or as changes occur to those water plant grant projects, but I won't necessarily know about what other folks are doing.
And I want to tie in because it fits right in with this, if I may, please. The CWCB is dishing out more cash to these roundtables to give out. You're looking at a group of volunteers. I can't tell you how many thousands of hours I put in to getting a couple of VIPs done for our group, and talking and soliciting to people throughout the White River Basin and the Yampa Basin to get what we got done. Now we're looking at throwing more money at these volunteers to give out, and we're trying to keep track of to making sure we're doing our job. Sorry, Ashley, I'm speaking, but Joe, you're on the line here too, so, and Jackie, but if we're gonna be asking more from the roundtables with these dollars to give them out, but yet we're not getting any additional assistance to make sure that these dollars are well represented that were spent out there. Is there a process already that the CWCB has? Because they've got to sign off on all the grants that we give out anyway. Is there something that's already there that CWCB can grab on and send us these progress reports that they get? Because you got to send them to the state or you're not going to get your money. So is there something that the state can do that's already developed that would kind of ease the woes that's going around in this room?
And Jeff might be able to weigh in. I do know there's like a projects database that's been developed that I believe gets updated annually. So that's something that I know of that is in existence.
And Ben normally sends me a dump for the Yampa-White-Green into like an Excel database. And that's what Patrick and I use to try to keep up with the projects, which ones are open, which ones are closed, that sort of thing.
And I forgot about that, but that's at least an annual update, but it is updated. We just used it the first time in November. So that was the first time we used that. So that's a new tool that's out there as well. So that does include updates.
But this has come up several times in our discussions, and it's certainly not, actually, it's certainly not your responsibility. But Jeff and Jackie, if you could please carry this conversation back to the rest of the CWCD and help give us some clear direction. I mean, that's why we reached out to you, was to get clarification on Mike's question. Are you the one that's gonna do this for us? And the answer was not within your capacity. So how would the CWCB like to do this? How would they like to interact with us and support our concerns about accountability and follow-up on these?
And I don't think we need a name response tonight.
No, we don't.
But let's get one for the next base roundtable meeting,
That'd be great.
okay?
Certainly something that
Because we're looking at,
Jackie and I can work on.
we've got some people that are getting overtasked, and every meeting, we're spending an hour and a half on grants, which is great. But that means we've got other duties that we can't do, let alone have follow-up. So
We're not alone.
Doug, I think you had something.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines as you are, and I'm also thinking statewide. All the other basin roundtables have got to have the same issue going on.
What are they doing?
So it seems to me like the CWCB needs to be in this loop and needs to pass along any information that can help us with this accountability or update piece. So it should be coming downstream from them to us.
Correct.
And there's going to be more money on the table. We all know that. So it seems like a process needs to be put into place.
Okay.
Next thing I wanted to just mention is the NRCS's process is a reimbursement process. So you receive an award or you get a contract with the NRCS. It's a reimbursement process. So you have to prove that work was done. In the old days, it was a receipt. Now it's an inspection, photographs, whatever, and then you get your compensation, whether it was a cost share or full pay or whatever it was. The other thing I was gonna say is the money that's left over in the IWMP could be considered money to see if a contractor could help us with this.
Right.
And so that was a thought. And then with Callie's mention of monthly meeting, maybe it's not monthly, maybe we have a quarterly meeting where people can come in and share their success. Because I mean, we're funding these projects, but we don't get the vibe of the success of a project completed. And I think it would be helpful for the roundtable to see their efforts come to fruition. So maybe we have an occasional meeting. That's the purpose of that meeting, not other business, just to celebrate and see the updates as well as celebrate completion of projects.
Yeah, most of what I was gonna say has already been addressed, but I've been thinking, you know, we as a roundtable do approve the grants. The grant committee does the hearing of the first presentation, then we bring it to the roundtable, and I think that's a good process. We don't want to forego that. But as I personally thought about a projects committee, I just thought, I don't need, and I don't have the time to be on a projects committee for 80 more grants. However, after listening to Callie, kind of reading between the lines, Callie, but hearing her say, well, we can evaluate our own projects on White River. We don't need the whole roundtable. And I thought to myself, you know, I'd be willing to participate on a projects committee that would say Moffett County or the Lower Basin or in my backyard. And so maybe divide and conquer would be more acceptable, where we had a projects committee. We had 3 of them. We had an upper headwater committee that evaluated those grants, a lower Yampa, and then a White River, so that we were able to be a little more hands-on and have the time, not quite so many projects to evaluate. That's just a thought.
Okay, well, and one of the most enthusiastic comments we got was from Clinton Whitten with the NRCS, and he said he really liked the idea, because especially for a 566 or something that's regional, that is multi-basin, this would be a perfect venue for him to try to coordinate these efforts. Yeah.
Okay, I want to keep going. We spent 30 minutes on this already, so that you wasted your 5 and your 15. Anyway, but Jackie's had her hand up for a bit, and then I swear we're going to go to Doug, and that's it. We're moving forward. We're already pressing ourselves here. Jackie, please, what do you have on your mind? Share with us.
Sure. I just wanted to clarify the question that you're asking for clarification from CWCB. There's a lot of information on the table right now. One of the things I'm hearing is that maybe you're alluding to that the basin roundtables need more paid staff or more money to pay staff to help dole out money. Is that accurate?
I think just keep track of what we're doing, Jackie.
Keep track of what's been spent and keep us informed on the progress.
Making sure that the.
Okay.
Follow through.
The follow through after the grant's been awarded, or is this grant still alive? Is the project finished? Is it in hiatus because they needed to go back for some additional spending? Where's the grant at?
Okay, do you want that in a? I think all of that information is going to be available online. I don't want to misspeak, but I think I'm recalling that this is going to be with the new application process that has been redone, that we should have sort of a central portal. Would that be enough for this to be for you to be able to access it, or are you looking for like a report out on a monthly basis from a CWCB staff member?
Jackie, I think what I'm getting, and I'm trying to interpret this here, and the database, that the project's database is new. We've used it one time. That was November. That's it. Okay? This is brand new coming about and it's updated annually. That's better than what we have right now. That database is supposed to be updated as progress is made on these grants as well. So is that something we want to kind of see how it moves forward? Because it's in development as we move, and I haven't looked at it since December.
Yeah,
December when we filed them.
I don't even know, Jackie, if the 15 active grants that we have are even in that.
Yeah, and that's only for grants that started in December to move forward. So it's not for our ones that we've done in the past. So
Jackie, look at it this way. If you, as the Colorado Water Conservation Board, were audited by the state to see if you had spent your funding where you said you had approved it for, and that those projects were completed as they were proposed, would you be ready? And, you know, and is this something that you have all nailed down? Is this something that we need to be taking care of? Is it some coordinated effort?
Yeah, I can answer that. That is not your job as the roundtable. That's CWCB's job. We are audited on an annual basis. I feel very confident in our in the projects that we grant out, the process that we use to give out that money. For those of you that are here tonight that have ever applied for and then received and gone through the process of requesting reimbursement or funding from CWCB, it is not easy. You know, like you go through a process for a reason. I have zero concern that there are holes in this system. So if that is the question, is CWCB giving out money the way that we say that we are? Absolutely, we are 100%. If you guys need something different for tracking purposes, or if we as a basin need something, then I'm hearing that we're getting cut short on time. I guess I'm confused as to what that can be, or what you need that to be. So I'm happy to work with you to be more, to get more information on exactly what and how often we need a product that is saying that. So, and I'm seeing something in the chat, sorry. The CWCB staff keep us accountable as project managers. Is that a question?
No, Jackie, I'm just, you know, the concern about the accountability, and I get that the Basin Roundtable wants to know where their money's going and what they're doing. But when we receive these grants, it's not like we get money without doing a report and verifying that we've got X amount done in order to get our money back. So I mean, that piece, that accountability is there with the state. So if that's the concern, I mean, I want to help people understand those are quarterly reports. And so we definitely do those. Now, coming back to the Basin Roundtable, yeah, it makes sense that we know what, where, and how it's being used. And like Sean said, what good is it doing? I mean, there's value in that, but accountability, I feel like from the state level, it's there.
Yeah, thank you, Callie. I appreciate that. Before I know you had said, I just wanted to give my really quick thoughts as a somewhat longtime Basin Roundtable member on additional meetings. I think that I know I put this out there to some of the folks on the executive committee, so to speak, team. I would really love to see these meetings at least once a quarter move around the basin. And I think that it's a little bit hard to ask people to travel on a monthly basis to evening meetings. And I know other basin roundtables use lunch hour meetings virtually for work that they need to get accomplished. And I'm just suggesting that before we add 3 hour plus 2 hour travel times plus 4 hour travel times for some people into the wheelhouse, that maybe we concentrate on how do we get in person at least 4 times a year in a meaningful way and tour some of these projects. And I know that's been really successful for other basins. They go out on a tour, they, share a meal together and they network, and that happens a few times a year. And maybe some of the other stuff can be taken in smaller bites instead of these long meetings. That's just my 2 cents, and I will mute myself.
Doug?
So I'll try to be quick here. So I voiced my concerns at the grant meeting. Number one, we don't have a fiscal entity. We are not a fiscal entity. We work under the CWCB's realm. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, a Doug Downer, but again, so are we trying to talk about accountability? Which accountability needs to have control. We don't have any control after we sign off, make a recommendation to the CWCB. They have the control. I'm with Jackie totally. I've been through the process. They do a good job. If we're going to be an advocacy committee and the rest, that's a whole different thing. We need to have those discussions. So I'm not in favor of more meetings for sure. And then if we're talking about having a coordinator, and I voiced my concern to Jeff when they came out, Jeff Rodriguez, when the CWCB came out and said they were going to have these rotating, the Ashley Garrisons. Thank you very much, Ashley. Nice to meet you. But you got a big turf, man. You get some good tires on your car, and we want to see you a lot. And good for you. So, but are we talking about having that? If we're going to be, advocacy committee, that's one thing. But then, so, and then, again, I listened to the West Fork Battle Creek Reservoir project last night, and we can't even come up with, consensus on these projects to think that we're going to support them. And I'm going to, one more point. So I was neglectful of myself that I hadn't followed all of the projects because I wasn't part of the BIP committee, been on all the rest of them, but I hadn't been on the BIP. So I did my research and analyzed all those projects that are out there. And I still advocate for the fact that the people who are supporting those projects need to be their own advocates, and we don't need to be babysitting them through the process. I took my project through the committee and took it on. So I think that those things need to happen. I'm all for bringing more money into our basin, but we need to figure out how we do that. And again, we don't have a fiscal entity, somebody to write the checks and that we're report to. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide a couple resources and maybe a couple comments that might just get to this issue here. So if you're looking for a spreadsheet of WSRF projects or something like that that has status updates, I might be able to provide that a few times a year or something like that. These projects don't typically change status monthly or bi-monthly or anything like that. It's kind of more like 6 month, year, maybe even 5 years, something like that. So that's one thing that I could probably help with, just with access to the WSRF database and all of that. Also, if you're looking for any of the documentation that CWCB requires in terms of progress reports, final reports, those types of things, those can all be found on the website through the document search link under the public information tab on the CWCB website. And I'm happy to drop a link to that in the chat so you have it. But I think, you know, I agree with you. I think tracking these projects and understanding where they're at would be a great thing for the roundtable, even getting status reports, whether that's in the form of a presentation or something like that. I've seen some entities willingly come back for that. I've seen roundtables reach out to folks and ask for that. So, you know, a couple different things you could do there. I know that puts a little bit more burden on all of you volunteers, but I'll happily take this back and just see if there's anything that we could provide that might be helpful. That's not too big of a lift for us, you know, because we do track these projects pretty intently and request progress reports and all of that stuff. So if we were audited tomorrow, we'd be ready. But I realize, you know, that you don't see all that information all the time. So just wanted to provide that resource, and then I'll happily take this back and see if there's anything more that I can do to help out with this.
Thank you. Myself, I'm gonna wrap this up. We're moving on. I do not support the creation of another committee. I do not support that. I think there's a process that we can implement within our existing structure to firm this up. And there's already stuff out there. We just gotta find it. I get the desire. I get it there. It's just a matter of us figuring this out.
Can we do an executive committee meeting to follow up on this?
Absolutely, we can. The other thing, I like Jackie's suggestion. It was brought up before about moving meetings around. 2 years ago, it was shot down. Okay, I brought that forward. And it was declined because some people didn't want to travel. People don't have time commitments. Well, here it is again. I think that's an opportunity for basins to kind of show them what's going on. Go up to Steamboat, go up to Rangeley, down to Rangeley, wherever you want to say it. Go to Hayden, Oak Creek, wherever. I think there's value into that. Doesn't mean more travel. But it'll give you an idea of what the locals are doing on their projects.
And it's a lot harder, Alvin, in the context of the hybrid meeting,
Yes.
because you gotta have a venue where you can do this.
Yep, exactly. And the hybrid meeting creates complexities, but yet it adds simplicity to it to a certain degree. The final piece that I just forgot about when about what I had in mind. But that's okay. So.
That was the lunchtime virtual meeting.
That's it there. There you go. Was doing something at noontime. And I'm thinking we maybe move our grant committees, our grant meetings to approve grants to over lunch. And that's a suggestion. And maybe we got to do a poll on it. I don't know. But that's a suggestion so that over noon you get 1 hour. We'll do grants at 1 hour. If we don't have enough to get it done in 1 month, we'll do it every month for 1 hour. That's what you got. And we'll do it one Wednesday or whatever day of the month on a Wednesday. But we must have a quorum in order to do that. So that means there's a commitment from the roundtable to hop on the phone or hop on a Zoom. So anyway, those are some thoughts. So, all right. Next item, Steve, you're up again. And now I'm gonna be hard on you for time.
Okay.
This took us a lot. You got an hour, but we're gonna knock that down by.
I finished in 5 minutes.
Yeah, so let's keep rolling. Good dialogue, and thanks everybody for jumping in on that. That's what we need. And Steve, you got a grant committee update and new funding.
Yes, I'm waiting for Patrick to get.
And we may have already kind of hit upon that new funding.
We did, yeah. I got it. People can read it. I won't go over it again.
I'm trying to get there in just a second.
Oh, that'd be it. Okay, next slide, Patrick. Okay. So I am quickly getting over the status of the grant funding for the 2023 grant cycle. Tonight is our last grant hearing votes for the 2023 cycle. Next March or at our March meeting, I'm going to bring in the suggested amount for the 2024 grant meeting, because the grants that we hear tonight, anything we approve
will be on the May CWCB meeting agenda, hopefully. I'm going to talk a little bit about the additional CWCB funding. I'm going to talk about the time allocation for grants and letters of support presenters that we're going to hear about today. We've got a letter of support for Rivers Edge West. It's a water plan grant for the White River. The city of Craig's going to talk about the Yampa River Corridor Project grant request. TNC is going to talk about the Maybell Ditch and Headgate construction. And then tonight in the documents, online and in the, did we get packets?
The packets were printed off and I can share the packet in
Okay.
the chat.
Okay, anyway, no, I don't need one. I didn't see any packets. But anyway, the documents for tonight are the minutes from the grant meeting on 12/14/22. And then the grant summaries for the city of Craig and the TNC grants are also available. So those are the two. Go ahead, Patrick. So I just wanted to quickly go through our balance. So our balance for this year was all monies in, was $1,202,000. We spent $202,000 in May. In November, we voted forward $344,000 worth of grants. And tonight we're going to vote for, we're going to hear a grant for $100,000 of Yampa-White-Green Basin funds and $100,000 of this new statewide WSRF fund from the city of Craig. And TNC Maybell Ditch project would be $150,000 for the WSR, the grant, our Yampa-White-Green Basin grant, and $802,000, give or take, for the state WSRF match for that project. So so that's about $250,000 of our money tonight that we'll be considering. That will leave our new account balance somewhere around $406,000, which is where we want. We wanted it to be below the below the 450, so we could get the full $300,000 potential funding in July of this year. And tonight we're going to be asking for almost $902,000 of state WSRF funds. So as you can see, the two projects that we're going to see tonight, the city of Craig, their project's going to be almost $5 million for that project. They're actually providing quite a bit of match. In both cases, their project scored a 39 on our grant matrix. The TNC project's gonna be is about $1,300,000, and Jennifer will show you projects cost for the whole project, and it's substantially more than that. And their project scored a 40 on our grant. Go ahead, on our matrix. Go ahead, Patrick. So this is what I talked about to answer Mike's question earlier. 75% match from state WSRF funds, 10% match required of that from the BRT, and at minimum 15% match from the grantee. So you can combine the BRT match and the grantee match to make the 25,000 or to make the 25%. These statewide funds can only be used for projects for aging infrastructure and drought resilience. So that comes right out of the CWCB grant guidance. Go ahead, Patrick. So I just want a little feedback tonight. I always battle with Alden. We spend a lot of time on grants in our meetings.
Typically, we're following the Jackie Brown 3 slides. Well, for the letters of support, we ask for 1 slide, 3 minutes to explain it, 5 minutes for Q&A, 2 minutes to make the motion, discuss the motion and vote, so we only allocate 10 minutes. And for the time for the grant request, we've asked for 3 slides, which is typically about 9 minutes. We have 9 minutes for Q&A, 2 minutes to make the motion and discuss it. So as we move through the grant process tonight, think about what you're seeing, the time that we're spending, talk about it, and maybe give me some input at the end of my presentation. I'm gonna ask for just a little input. Does it seem right? Does it seem like too much? Does it seem like not enough? Because this, as Alden said, it sure takes a lot of time from our meetings with these allocations. Go ahead, Patrick. So the first project we're gonna hear about tonight is the White River Riparian Restoration Letter of Support. The presentation will be by John Leary, River's Edge West Restoration Coordinator. And there's documents in the grant folder that's online for this project. And I think in the packet, there's a draft letter of support for this project set up for Alden's signature. And then we've got some questions that the grant committee asked John Leary prior to the grant committee taking place. So they were all answered in emails. There's that document is available as well. So go ahead, Patrick. John, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks.
Okay, you're on.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your time. My name is John Leary. I'm a restoration coordinator with River's Edge West. And I am asking for a letter of support from the Basin Roundtable for a riparian restoration project from the Colorado Water Plan Grant. Mentioned it earlier, but it is past the deadline, the original application deadline, but we did check with CWCB, and if the roundtable is willing to provide a letter of support, they are willing to accept it past this deadline. I hope I didn't scale it back too much since the grant committee meeting, so just let me know if there's any questions. We are aiming to improve 11 acres of riparian habitat in the White River Basin through Russian olive and tamarisk removal and revegetation with native plants as determined by monitoring and a partner needs. 9 acres of that is in the Big Trujillo area, which is split between Bureau of Land Management and private land. And 2 acres of that is in Yellow Creek, which is managed by the BLM. And this project is also supported by the grazing permittee for the Yellow Creek area. We do have some crews already working in the Yellow Creek area. We had some this past summer and this upcoming summer. We've just hit a bit denser of areas than we had expected. And so we're hoping that we think that with these an additional 2 weeks of crew work, we'll be able to knock out that area. I do see this as a multi-benefit project. It will improve habitat for terrestrial and in-stream wildlife. Particularly species that will be impacted are the northern leopard frog, the Colorado pike minnow, as well as a lot of native desert fishes. And as far as terrestrial wildlife goes, elk and deer habitat, especially in that Big Trujillo area. The goal is to improve overall riparian function and watershed health, maintaining floodplain connectivity, protecting water quality, reducing salinity caused by tamarisk, and also reducing the threats of wildfire that I think we all know do quite a bit of damage to the water quality. Big Trujillo is one of the only public river access points on the White River. And so we want to improve that boat river access for that stretch of the White River, and also aiming to improve agricultural use, both, as I mentioned, for the grazing permittee on Yellow Creek, as well as the private land that is in the Big Trujillo area. They use that for cattle as well. And this is a joint effort between nonprofit, federal, state, local, and private landowners. The timeline is on there. If you've seen the packets, we did pair this project in an application with another project that we have. And so those costs that you see there are the costs that are specific to the White River Basin portion of the project. Of the total project cost of the 130,000, 90,000 of that is for project implementation. So for hiring crews, purchasing herbicide, purchasing plant materials, things like that. The remaining amount is for monitoring, coordination, planning, and reporting. We did beef that up a little bit higher than we normally do because our goal is to work with local contractors on a lot of this work, and I haven't done that before. And so I want to make sure that there's enough in the budget to make sure that we're all on the same page there. That's all I have. Moving forward, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I would also appreciate just in general, if you could let me know the best way to provide updates to this group in general as far as our projects go. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Oh, anybody have any questions for John concerning this project?
Sean's got his hand up. Sean Weber.
Oh,
I just wanted to share my support for John, and I think he's on the right track. I've known John a couple of years, and I'm really glad to see boots on the ground for projects like this. The Tamarisk, I don't know if John mentioned it in his presentation tonight, but it's a water sucking invasive, and that should be another reason that we want to get rid of the Tamarisk. But I'm all in support for John and would like to see a letter of recommendation for him.
okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Sean. Patrick, can you go to the next slide? So I don't see any other questions, so the required action for us is a motion and a second. And you see the motion on the screen. And then we would vote on the motion. The grant committee does recommend a letter of support for the White River Restoration Project be submitted for this water plan grant. So moved. Yeah. Okay.
Who got that?
I'll second. This is Chris.
Did you get those, Katie?
Yep.
Okay.
Up to you.
So we got any other discussion? We do have a motion and a second on the table. All right, moving forward. So all in favor of the grant committee or recommend approval of the letter of support written and submitted for the White River Riparian Restoration Project involving $66,069 of a CWCB water planning fund, water plan funding, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. John, thank you. Help make our White River more beautiful and functional.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks, John. I know the area he's working at it. It needs some help, so.
Next slide, Patrick. Okay, so our next project is the Yampa River Corridor Project. City of Craig, Yampa River, presentation will be by Melanie Kirkpatrick. She's with us tonight, City of Craig. Documents included in the grant folder for this project are the Yampa-White-Green grant application for this project, the January Basin Roundtable grant summary that I supplied, a little one-page document on the grant itself, and then the grant meeting minutes if anybody wants to see those. So go ahead, Patrick. So the floor is yours.
All right,
Melanie.
thank you. I'm Melanie Kilpatrick. I'm with the City of Craig. I'm the project manager for the Yampa River Corridor projects. It's truly a multifaceted project. It's water infrastructure, it's recreation infrastructure, as well as largely an economic development project for Moffett County and the City of Craig. The project is a collaborative project between the City of Craig and Moffett County. The city's just taken the lead on a lot of the funding. pursuits as well as management of the projects. The improvements will occur on county property as well as city property. There's two components to the project. I'm going to speak to the project as a whole, even though our request to you tonight is specific for in-stream improvements. The first component will be happening at Laddie Simpson Park, new boat ramp there. If you're familiar with Laddie Simpson, there's an existing boat ramp, gravel boat ramp, and the new boat ramp will be about a quarter mile downstream of the existing ramp. It'll be a concrete ramp. There'll be 28 new parking spaces, 388 parking spaces, access and road into that location. That location will be a great asset in serving the new infrastructure upstream, but also serving public access to the Little Yampa Canyon and the Lower Yampa Basin at that location. The centerpiece of our project is what you see here, the Whitewater Park, which will be located at the city's existing diversion dam. So it's about 30 years old, and the existing diversion dam is actually that center blue piece that you see throughout the river there. So we'll reconstruct that diversion dam to incorporate recreational assets there. So there'll be two drop features at this location, one above, one at the existing diversion dam, and then some grade control mattress down below. And then you can also see largely that will complement the in-stream assets with improvements to the upland side on river left there. So access, road, parking, and then nature play areas, picnic shelters, and vault toilet area there. So really creating a cohesive river park area, complementing what we're trying to do here and refocusing and diversifying our economy for the city of Franklin County. You can go ahead and go to slide 2 for me, Patrick. Actually, can we go back to that one real fast? I always forget to mention the whole, you can kind of see the drop features in feature 1 and feature 2, but all of that river right side is newly integrated fish passage, which will greatly improve at this location with that 30-year-old infrastructure. All right, now we can go to the next slide. So you can see I've been with the project, we're going on 3 years now. We started with a co-application to the Economic Development Administration, the county and the city, to apply for grant funding to implement the project. We originally applied for design and engineering as well as construction. And we were asked to only apply for construction, which created a little bit of a scramble for design and engineering and timing with that. But if you remember, we applied to Yampa-White-Green Basin Roundtable back in 2021 for design and engineering, and that greatly assisted us in acquiring funding for phase 2, which is implementation and construction of the project. One of our greatest hurdles was just what we've seen with cost estimates over the last 2 years. 2020, our preliminary engineering report estimated the project at about 2.3 million. And then we go to 2022 with our updated design and engineering estimates, estimating the project just under 5 million. So doubling our project costs due to inflation and market volatility created another scramble for us to secure additional funding. The Economic Development Administration was amenable to increasing our grant ask. We just had to secure some additional match funding for that. So you can see it's been a whirlwind, but the project has numerous support and a diverse support. Yampa River Fund, Moffat County is contributing, the Office of Just Transition, the City of Craig, Trapper Mine, Friends of the Yampa, and then Friends of the Yampa is also serving as the fiscal agent for the Hillsdale Fund, which has contributed funding as well. the Northwest Colorado Parrot Heads. And this project's really a vision of that local community group. They started out with initiating the feasibility and concept work back in 2016. And we've kind of had a handoff for the rest of funding in order to implement, but they're still proud supporters of the project. The EDA grant, we had our official award announcement August 9th of 2022, so not too long ago, for the 3.3 million contributed to the project. And then in full transparency, this was not updated in our grant application to the Yampa-White-Green because we just had 2 new funding contributors in December of this past year. Resources Legacy Fund has contributed an additional 30,000. And then the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority has gifted us 50,000 towards the project. So 2 new funding partners just happening this last December. And then we're seeking the funding here for 100,000, to the state for 100,000. And then we were invited to apply with GoCo, Great Outdoors Colorado, for 600,000. There were about 260,000-ish dollars of improvements that we had to strip out from our EDA application, just because they couldn't fund picnic shelters, vault toilets, and some of the upland improvements, and that's what the GoCo funding would be applied towards if we're awarded. So yeah, it's just it's a massive project. There's massive support, and thankfully we have awesome funding partners in collaboration to make this happen. So next slide, please. Like I mentioned before, it is a multifaceted project with many benefits, not only to the lower Yampa River Basin, to the city of Craig, Moffett County, but our surrounding regional areas as well. So it supports economic stimulus, resilience, and diversification. With our EDA grant, there's some unique public-private partnerships committed to the project. So I have 3 businesses: Good Vibes River Gear, Craig RV Park, and Bad Alibi Distillery that have committed to the federal grant. A certain amount of job creation as well as private investment to the project, and that will be tracked by that federal administration for 9 years post implementation of the project. So we'll really have some good data on the economic impacts resulting from the project. We're contributing new recreation opportunities and identified throughout our master plan, our Craig Parks and Recreation master plan, our transition plan, our tourism plan. So it's really streamlined throughout multiple strategic planning documents for the area. We're supporting increased public access to the lower Yampa River Basin. We're creating enhanced aquatic riparian habitat and fish passage. We'll sustain the city's municipal water supply. So that middle diversion feature that we talked about in that plan overview, that creates all the backwaters for our city municipal water intake system, which supplies all the water to the city of Craig. So making sure that infrastructure, again, it's about 30 years old, is up to date. If you've passed through there recently, you may have noticed like some rebar and some serious degradation to that infrastructure. So we're looking forward to bringing that up to date. We're creating a multi-use park, serving a variety of populations, and then we're supporting environmental education opportunities, river advocacy, and stewardship. Patrick, can you go back to that first slide? So you can kind of see between feature 1 and 2 and feature 2 in the grade control. On river left, there's 2 incorporated banks of amphitheaters, and that actually came from our public engagement with our stakeholder group, that they wanted to see these local areas that have worked well in other projects for education opportunities. You can kind of sit right there on the eddy. In low flow seasons, it'll be great for swimming holes and just kind of integrating into that big site. And then lastly, it has good local, regional, statewide support for the project. And overall, just a massive win for Craig and Moffett County to bring this to implementation. So that's kind of the project in a nutshell, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Melanie?
I have a clarifying question, Melanie, sorry.
It's okay. It happens all the time.
See, that's what I did.
There's a slight difference between Melanie and Melody. But Chapa, that is intriguing. They have been stepping out of the woodwork and funding things differently than they used to. What's their rationale for funding this?
Yeah, good question, Jeff. So really they support economic development and economic development projects. And so with our projections and then with the committed business beneficiaries, that public-private investment, they're supporting it as an economic development project for the area.
Interesting.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? You're gonna roll to the next slide, Patrick.
Steve, I just have a comment.
Oh.
I just
yeah,
wanted to
that's-
say that it was really impressive to read through all of the letters of support, and the project really does have great diverse and collaborative support, so it was really cool to read through all of those, and it's a great project. Yes, thank you, and I think it just continues to gain momentum. People want, we feel the love, people want us, support us here in what we're working on, and I think we can duplicate the successes that we're having here on additional projects that we're working on in the city. So thanks.
Okay, seeing no more questions, so the required action for the Yampa River corridors, a motion and a second for recommend approval of a grant request for 100,000 of Yampa-White-Green WSRF funds and 100,000 of CWCB WSRF state match funds.
I'll make that motion.
Mike, got the motion? Good.
Second.
Jennifer? Okay. So the grant committee recommends this grant for approval by the Yampa-White-Green Basin Roundtable for the amount shown above.
Other discussion? In the room? Doug? Oh, I thought you were unmuted. Sorry, Doug. Anybody online have anything? Hearing none, I'm gonna call the question. We got a motion second on the table to approve the grant for the Yampa River Corridor Project. Any other? I'm gonna pause here for a moment.
Heads up now.
Yeah. Doug, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I didn't. No, I apologize. I had to step out for a second, but so no,
No
I'm
worries.
all in favor. I'm all in
No
favor
worries.
of this.
Okay, so all in favor of the Yampa River Corridor Project signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, state nay. Say nay.
It's been a long day.
Motion passed. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Thank Patrick. Next slide. Oh, okay, so our final grant of the evening is the Maybell diversion and headgate construction. Jennifer Wellman of TNC will do the presentation. The documents included in the grant folder for this project include the Yampa-White-Green grant application, the January Basin Roundtable meeting grant summary that I prepared, the one pager for this project, and the January 14, 2022 grant meeting minutes. Go ahead, Patrick, next slide. Jennifer, are you still on?
I am, yes. Thank you.
You're up.
Good evening, everyone. Jennifer Wellman with the Nature Conservancy. I'm the freshwater project director, and we are working with Maybell Irrigation District and Friends of the Yampa on the hopeful construction of the Maybell diversion and headgate this year. Just to refresh your memory, the overarching project objectives are to modernize antiquated irrigation infrastructure, essentially covered under that aging infrastructure umbrella, to improve diversion efficiency and ease of use for agricultural water users, and then to improve the safety and passage of recreational boaters that currently have some challenges with this diversion. We're also supporting native and endangered fish habitat and movement for over 21 miles of the Yampa River with this project. And I would just like to express gratitude to all of the Basin Roundtable members and other community members within the watershed who participated in our stakeholder outreach on this project. We've had a number of meetings over the last couple years to refine the design and really work with the agricultural water users. And we're currently wrapping up all of our grant writing and fundraising for this project, and concurrently working with the Bureau of Land Management and the NRCS and the Bureau of Reclamation to complete all of our environmental and cultural clearances within NEPA. So we're planning to enter construction phase of this project, hopefully this summer. And with your assistance this evening, we will be making one more step in that direction. Next slide, please. So similar to the Yampa River Corridor project, we experienced an extreme increase in construction costs, and just haul costs of rock were unanticipated, and having to build roads on the south side of the river in order to access the project for construction traffic. So we've shifted and pivoted many times. Total project cost is currently at about 6.1 million, and that's direct costs. That doesn't include any contingencies. We did have an independent cost estimate performed just to have a better sense of what the actual costs might be, because our original costs, similar to Melanie, were in the $3 million range. And so our costs have doubled. And we are reserving some funds in contingency as recommended by a number of engineers, including our project engineer, Luke Gingrich with JUB. So I've just articulated here for the Basin Roundtable all of the funding that we've secured for this project, approximately 4.9 million. And we're looking to fill about a 1.2 million funding gap. Currently, we have some other requests pending and some potential federal funding that might go towards this project as well, but we're requesting $150,000 from the Basin Roundtable, and then an additional $801,000 from the statewide pot, which you can see there. We would hopefully apply for that in February 2023. Any questions about all these sources of funding? I've just tried to highlight the large amount of public funds that are already dedicated to this project. About 70% are public funds and 30% currently private or local funding. So next slide then. If awarded, this WSRF grant will cover our construction expenses, which would include all of the road building, as I mentioned. This is a view of the south side approach to the project, and it has not been utilized as construction staging. So the area that you're seeing in the foreground would be used as the construction staging area and access to the project site through BLM lands. And we would also pay for additional costs of the head wall and headgate communications system, which I think the Basin Roundtable and the state WSRF and water plan grants have already contributed funding to. And then we would also do some of the in-stream work to increase aquatic connectivity as part of this project. So essentially construction.
Yay.
I know. And I believe Mike Camblin is in the room with you. He's available to answer questions, and that's all I have.
Any questions for Jennifer or Mike?
Are you anticipating this fall then being beginning?
Yeah, we are, yep, getting started this fall. Actually, we'll get started maybe some this summer. But they were with the rock and stuff like that, and then, yeah. Completion, I think we'd like to shoot for December, but that's weather related. Yeah, it's been a long time coming out. What have we figured? We've been working on this, what, 6 years, Jennifer? Been a long time.
Probably, yeah, before my time. And then, yeah.
And then inflation's kind of kicked us in the butt a little bit. But like she said, you know, we did this from what Luke's been telling us price was, and then the independent studies that TNC did. I mean, just inflation is just really just changed the dynamics of everything. So.
Any other questions?
The only one I got is, I guess we've gone this far. We just as well see it to the end. But I support the project, we put a lot of time and effort and dollars into this thing. Let's get her done.
Yeah.
I think it's what we're supposed to be doing, isn't it?
Hell yeah.
This is kind of
That's the plan, yeah.
Next slide, Patrick.
Yeah, so moved.
So the grant committee recommends this grant for approval by the Yampa-White-Green Basin Roundtable for the amounts shown, and the required actions can be a motion and a second for recommend approval of grant request for $150,000 of Yampa-White-Green Basin Roundtable WSRF funds and $801,884 of CWCB WSRF state match funds.
What the grant committee said.
We recommend for that amount.
I'll move the recommended motion, Brenner.
Second.
Jennifer's got second. All right. Any other discussion?
I thought they were dreaming the day they came in and told us it was gonna cost $3 million. So I remember 2. And so I am absolutely awestruck that you guys are gonna get this project done. Congratulations.
Get it done before the bid changes. So let's call it. So motion on the table to approve the grant fund for the Maybell diversion and headgate construction. And all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Jennifer, get your sledgehammer and your mortar mixer out there. Start pouring some concrete.
I'm getting the tractors fired up.
There you go. Get your hard hat on.
Next slide, Patrick. All right, thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
So that's the end of the grants committee updates. Any feedback on the amount of time allowed at this meeting? 10 minutes for the letter of support, 20 minutes for the grant presentations, which I actually think went a little bit quicker. Does it seem about right? Do I have a thumbs up, thumbs down for the amount of time? Okay,
You're good.
perfect. There's no other questions. It's on to you all.
Thank you. All right. And let's go into the IBCC discussion right now. And where I wanted to kind of go with that is at the last meeting, we had some folks. We have Tom is moving on. And Tom, thank you for your years of service. It's duly noted. You've really helped us out. We wish you well in your Mexican or wherever you're going adventures. I don't know where, but work on your tan. So, thank you. And the IBCC, I don't know, we've got a lot of new faces around. And I don't know if everybody in our roundtables with these new faces know what the IBCC is. I've been around long enough, and many of us have, but I wanted to give a brief, just go to the next slide. Just a very brief update. I got 2 slides after this one. What does the IBCC do? Well, they're part of the Water 21st Century Act, as you know. But it's a statewide committee that guides discussions and voluntary negotiations between basins. They make it so that the Yampa Basin or the White River Basin, the Yampa and the Yampa-White-Green Basin can go to the Colorado River, and we can do a compact. We can have an agreement between the two basins. Those are things that we have the powers to do, but they also move forward and they take base roundtable positions to a state level, to a 27-member board that they got up there that reports as for policy, to help direct policy within the state. We also prioritize needs that are there. So let's go to the next slide. And then within here, this is from our bylaws. You know, it's 2 individuals from each basin roundtable. The governor's got, I don't know, 6, 8 of them, something like that, that the governor appoints. And then they've got to reside within our Yampa-White-Green Roundtable. That's from our bylaws there. So, and it's a 2-year term of office. Representatives will report to the Basin Roundtable membership on the activities of the IBCC, as well as any pending and expected issues and concerns, which they do through the Big River Committee and to you here tonight. This is where the Big River Committee comes into. So these guys are really looking at larger issues. And then the other piece that we have is they the Base Roundtable gives these individuals direction on positions or feedback that they want to give to the IBCC. Now, we also have our CWCB representative, Jackie. She works as, I don't know, what do you want to say, ex officio almost for our Base Roundtable. I think she's non-voting, but she's there to participate and represent ourselves as well on that, on the IBCC. That's how that works. So right now we've got a vacancy. I've been soliciting some folks. We kicked this around the last meeting. We've been talking about it. And I think, and we've got enough Big River stuff moving forward, that we need to get somebody moving forward in this thing that can help Jeff do his job and represent our Base Roundtable. We've got some positions that Jeff is going to discuss here very briefly and move forward that have an impact upon how we utilize our water, but also what water may go down through Powell and Meade. So how do we make sure our positions get carried forward and represented through the state, through the IBCC as well? Jeff's going to outline that. So I'm at a position tonight to where I'm really hoping that we can maybe identify somebody that's willing to step into this role. So I'm looking for a volunteer, for someone that has some expertise, because this is a job. They meet 3 times a year, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Officially 3, but there's often a 4.
Yeah. And DNR Executive Director Dan Gibbs is the chair of that committee. And then there's a series of other ex officios that are associated with that as well. So there's quite a few really expert people that are in water and water policy that sit around there and have these discussions. And these discussions really they get into it. They're supposed to. So that's their job. So this is not, that's what you would say is a non-technical task. You have to be a thinker. You got to be progressive. You got to be solution oriented. So do we have anybody in this room here that has interest in that? To take that forward, or do we need to have some more time?
Well,
I'm sorry?
Board members are on. Sorry. Al, you asked me to write something up.
If somebody of
submitted it
interest
to you.
does.
I haven't, I asked to have it sent out. I'm not sure if the rest of the roundtable members have seen my letter that you asked me to write.
I have not shared it. So I was hoping if you have an interest, this is something that I would look, if an individual has interest, please come forward and share that.
Yeah,
And if the roundtable doesn't want to take action on it tonight, that's your prerogative. But we need to keep moving progressive. I don't like that sitting there to where we got a vacancy on a committee and we got Jeff solo team. Jeff needs help.
And if anybody needs help.
It's Jeff. And I'll gladly help too.
Let's
And I know
face
Jackie will.
So I would just like to make two points. First of all, the value that Tom brought to our roundtable in his role as an IBCC member is not going to be easy to match up to because of his stature and the relationship that he had with people at the state level and his knowledge. He was it's hard to overstate the value that Tom brought. That's point A. Point B is that the IBCC itself is struggling to define its value and the direction that it needs to go. I think
the DNR and Jackie and Jeff are listening in, so if I step on your toes, you're more than happy to fire back. Department of Natural Resources thinks that the Basin Roundtables should have a PEPO function, a public education and outreach function. And they think that we should have a project function, grants. And I think our basin does both those things really, really well. The thing that DNR is much less interested in is our feedback on high-level policy issues. And the IBCC should be the place out where people from each basin bring perspectives on policy and discuss those in an open way. DNR has been much less interested in that. I don't know, Tom, am I overstating?
No, you're right.
No,
You're right on.
So, to Al's point, anyone who wants to put the oar in the water, I'm all for it. But I think a big part of that job is being able to advocate in a knowledgeable enough way and in a not necessarily confrontational way, but to keep moving that policy and interbasin value discussion forward. Because when we go there, a lot of times we hear about a bunch of projects from other basins, but we don't really spend quality time talking about those policy issues at the state level that we really should be confronting and addressing. And so, Tom was invaluable because he has a great perspective on those things. Whoever replaces Tom, I'm not trying to intimidate you, I'm just telling you that's a big part of the job.
Beautiful. You said it very well. While also representing the basin, our region's values. And what's important to us. And there's things happening right now that really they're not taking our consideration in, nor the IBC's consideration in, that they should be, as when you read Senate Bill 1177 says they will. That fries my tuckets. And they need to get that from us. So how do we make sure that they get that? That's where our representation comes in, and I believe that's where we're trying to go. So, Doug, someone said you got your hand up? Yep, Doug.
Sorry, I had to take off mute. So, this is very important, and I can't tell you how much appreciate Tom and Jeff and the work that they've done. Man, this is a heavy lift, and again, I don't know. I'm supposed to be kind of halfway retiring, so I want to make sure that and Callie just sent me an email. So if nobody else can do this, I sat in on a couple of these meetings, about 5 years ago, and I was very frustrated with not going nowhere and not doing anything. So doing nothing. So I don't know, and I appreciate Senator Commissioner Gibbs and his work that he's doing on this thing. I think it might be the good thing to do, but man, I'm still a little frustrated in the focus on how all this kind of works together and how we can bring our Yampa-White-Green thing together. I listened to three of the past 3 meetings. Sorry. And yeah, there was a lot of basin updates and yet really not a lot of action. So I'm struggling to figure out, I don't need another brain damaging meeting that I need to go and prep for and then be ready to do and the rest. So and we have our issues, and I think we still have the tools that we can take care of our own issues. So I'll open it up to, I think Ken has expressed some interest. I don't know, but I'm not sure that I want to do this, but I don't want it go unhanded either. So, and I know that Tom Gray probably has expressed a little frustration to me personally, maybe. So, what are we doing there with that thing? So I don't know, maybe that's what we need is some more leadership to tell what that thing needs to do back to the 1177 process. So anyhow, I'll shut up. Thank you.
Any other feedback?
Well, just, wrote up just kind of a summary of my experience and background. But, I sense that same frustration that you have. Like Doug, I've attended a number of the IBCC meetings and like Doug, I've always been kind of skeptical about what it was that the IBCC was actually going to accomplish. But I think you did a really nice job of summarizing that we need to switch to a more policy focused channel of communication with Colorado Water Conservation Board. As hard as they work and as all the great people they have and the resources, they don't know everything. They really rely on, I think, the basins, and that was Russell George's original intent with the whole 1177 piece of legislation, was to gather good support at the grassroots and have this corridor. And thanks to Tom and Jeff, there's been, we've taken up tough policy issues. We beat our brains out trying to put together papers that explain where we were coming from. But I think we need to, if we're gonna go out if we're gonna continue to send representatives to the IBC, the message from us needs to be, we want our representatives to be vocally questioning whether or not the Colorado Water Conservation Board and the Department of Natural Resources is really interested in hearing back from the basin roundtables on policy issues. Because I think that's the focus. That's the main thing. I mean, yeah, there are some compacts and some cooperative agreements that are gonna come through. Those are nice. You can hang your hat on that and say you did something. But we've never been in a situation where there were so many important issues and so much at stake that was a great opportunity to be providing pointed advice and suggestions from the roundtable. And we had a really good discussion this afternoon at the Big River Committee.
Yeah.
That was a very substantive discussion. Thank you for that work, Chuck.
So just to add about 15 degrees on your circle there, Ken, because everything you said was right. In addition to the DNR and the CWCB staff not knowing everything, they do know a lot. But Colorado is an extremely diverse state, and the needs and the issues that are facing the 13 different bays, the 9 different basins, they're very diverse. And the IBCC could be a good place for that diversity to be discussed and understood. Should be, right? It should be. We have a lot of different requirements in our pals from the Arkansas. Trust me.
So I guess what I'm hearing is we do have an interested individual.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you're willing to move forward.
Yeah,
Rich,
I
did
am.
you have something?
But am I the only one? I mean.
I don't call yourself a sucker. I don't have the depth of knowledge.
Okay.
To argue the points that these guys are.
Obviously an important position, but it needs to be one of us that knows the most, right? Trying to take his shoes. Certainly not me.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're not gonna fill Coff's shoes. No. That's all there is to
We'll
it.
try it out.
So don't feel,
Someone
that
with more
there's
than 1
opportunity
year.
to learn and anyone who understands what is happening in the Yampa-White-Green can be an asset, yes.
Anybody online have any feedback? I mean, Ken's looking at throwing his hat into the mix. Are we comfortable with that and moving forward? I am.
Yeah.
I'm still very comfortable with Ken.
Can I just ask a clarifying question here? This is Sonia.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're looking for one person right now,
Yes.
and this is decided right at this meeting?
Well, we learned about Tom Gray's exit meeting or two ago. Was it November or was it September? I think you said it.
I think it was September.
September, and we've been building up to kind of get some consensus from the group on who's interested, feeding around, getting some folks to kind of learn what it's about. We've had I'd say a half a dozen people kind of contact me And I know a couple of the vice chairs have been involved as well, wanting to learn more about the task. So we've shared some information about that. And so we're at our third meeting now, and we've got some decisions to make. We've got some white papers to write up. Things are happening, and we need to make sure that we're well represented at the table. I guess I'm at a position to where I would encourage our roundtable to move forward.
I would too, Al. Ken's been attending all the Big River committees, the Big River committee topics that Jeff is working on. We can't leave Jeff hanging out there on his own to deal with those. I'd support Ken. If, you know, if you're willing to step up, you'd be a good rep for our basin. Thank you, Ken.
I nominate Ken as IBCC rep.
Second.
So we do have a motion and a second. Motion by Steve. Second by Jennifer. Nominating Ken to be our IBCC representative. Jeff, you have some discussion.
All for it. Sonia, I want to say also that there is plenty of room here for you to learn about what we do at the IBCC and in the Big River Committee. And, you know, Ken would be happy, I would be happy to take the time to meet with you and kind of get you up to speed. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing that prohibits you from attending an IBCC meeting and
That's
learn
correct.
more about that. In fact, that would be a very great benefit to our roundtable if you were willing to take the time to do that. And I can keep you posted on when those happen and keep you in the loop there.
And we'll get you to the Big River Committee meeting next time.
Maybe about 5 or 6 of us from the roundtable that typically, other than the 2 representatives, there's 3 or 4 that are listening in usually. So, and then, oh, I'm one.
That would just be very, very valuable for the roundtable to have you attend.
Sonia, do you have any other discussion?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion online?
I was just wondering, you know, with the frustration that they've stated. If the IBCC isn't doing what we think it ought to. I mean, we need to let them know.
Absolutely, and that's where my mind's going.
So, I mean, could we reach out to the Colorado River District or any of these groups that could sit down or, you know, let them know, hey, you guys aren't going the right direction.
I guess I would suggest going straight to Dan Gibbs.
Yeah.
I've known Dan for 20 years.
Yeah, and he'll listen to that.
He's good listening.
Yeah.
So there you have it. I guess if anybody runs across Dan.
Don't forget, Kelly Romano Haney is the water specialist.
Yes.
Underneath Dan.
We
So,
all know Kelly.
you know, we all know Kelly.
That's right. She's well involved in this too, so.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Let's vote on this.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Last call. Motion to approve Ken as an IBCC representative. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Congratulations, Ken.
Thank you.
Give him hell.
Thank you.
Thanks for being willing.
Thank you for willing to step into this.
That was the hard part. He didn't say that through the 6 months. People are going nuts, yes.
So now I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna keep us going. So,
Thank you.
PWR, I know, Aaron, I don't know if you're still with us. I know you were, but I know we have a new special guest in the room. That I know from the White River. I'm very proud to say we have 2 full-time water commissioners now. And Betty is with us this evening. And I would like Betty to introduce herself to you.
I knew you'd put me on the spot.
Absolutely, I'm going to.
All right, well, I'm Betty Kraft. I'm the new water commissioner for District 43, which is the White River Basin. I started in September and Alden has made my life very interesting. But outside of that, it's been good. I grew up in Monte Rio Blanco. I always called me for my home. So I feel a really good connection with the community and I guess the desire of how our area works.
Well, and thank you for taking the drive up from your
Yeah.
home to
Thanks for letting me come.
to join us here, so.
And
Sarah.
Alden, I was gonna say, Alden, I am on the phone, and I think what I'll do is I'll give a brief update on a couple items, and then I'm gonna turn it back over to Betty to give an update on the White River call. So, yes, I do, as Alden said, you know, please welcome Betty Kraft. She's an excellent individual, excellent water commissioner. I'm very excited to have her on our team, and definitely excited to have our two water commissioner positions filled in the White River Basin. The two things that I wanted to just report on with the group, I'm always giving updates on the abandonment process, so I'll go ahead and give an update on that. Most of our cases that were protested, we did extend their at issue date. The at issue date has been moved to January 31st. What that really means is that we have until January 31st to enter into as many stipulations as we can in those 55 protested cases. If we can't do that by just January 31st, either we will ask for another extension for the at issue date, or we will have to start filing our 2681 disclosures with the court. So quite honestly, we've only signed one stipulation, but we're very close to signing stipulations on a couple handfuls of other stipulations. So hopefully we'll continue to work through those and really won't have to go through the preparation for trial process, which the first step is 2681 disclosures. So that's the status there. And then the other thing, just an update on the measurement rules. I think everybody was aware that protests had to be filed by December 31st. We did receive 6 protests, 4 of which were really not very substantive. They were more just individuals getting into the case so that they could keep an eye on the case. And then 2 of them were a little bit more substantive. I would say that if you want to see those protests, they are available online on our website. If anybody is familiar with our Laserfish portion of our website, you can go there. The way to do that is in Laserfish, go to the water court case. And so you go to water courts, and then you enter the case number for Division 6. And the case number, as I recall, was 22 CW 102. 22 CW 3102. And you want to make sure you enter that right, or you're not going to find that court case and all the documents that are tied to it. So if you're interested in the protests that were filed, that's available there. If you can't find them for any reason, give me a holler and I can definitely provide those. With that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Betty. And I'll just preface by saying in our November meeting, I think I informed everybody that it was looking like we were going to have a call on the White River. We do. I went ahead and instituted a call effective December 1st at the request of Rio Blanco Water Conservancy District. And Betty has been out there actually enforcing that call. And so I'll let her give an update on that.
Hey, Aaron, would you mind typing up that case number in the chat?
You bet, I sure will.
Thanks.
Okay, so as far as what's happening in the White River Basin, like Aaron stated, we have a call that went on December 1st. And right now, it's not irrigation season, so we're mainly trying to curtail anybody that's using water for stock water that's not treated for that. And industry is the other big part that we're touching on. So we've been working with, actually, not too, with Natural Soda, implementing an augmentation plan for their well depletions. And we've also been in talk with Karis and TEP or Terra, as well as additional industry. The ag users we've dealt with have been really good. I mean, I've been impressed with kind of their attitude towards all this. We've had to shut off 4 ditches and we've turned down 2. And then I had 2 ditches just voluntarily shut off. They can run stock water. They said, we're not using it, they shut it off. All in all, I think we've curtailed about 16 CFS. Doesn't sound like much, but in the wintertime, it's not bad. It's actually, I say more or less, because it's really hard to measure water with ice and snow. It's kind of a guess by golly. The other big thing we're working on is education. We've never had a call in the White River. So a lot of our water users don't have a clue. I mean, what it entails, what it's going to look like. So that's kind of our stance right now, is educating people, making sure they get their measuring devices in. And making sure they understand where they stand in the priority system. And that's not it for me. You guys have any questions? Yeah.
Congratulations on your new position.
Well, thank you. So far, so good.
We'll get worse. First call on the White River at the same time.
Yes, well, that's what I say. At least I don't know what it looks like for history wise, so I can't say last year was easier.
I have
Going
a
forward.
question for you. The livestock water issue, how does that take people by surprise that they can't water the livestock? What's your tone on how that's going?
Yes, it does take it by surprise, because most people feel I have a water right, I can use that water right for irrigation, stock water, sugar, or whatever. And so they do, they kind of get that shock and awe. And the way we have approached it is the information first, saying you don't have stock water, do you have an alternative source? Because we're not going to shut the water off and fill your cows. Plain and simple. So we've been working with a few that have had issues, making sure they have supplemental water or an access to the river or something.
So have you committed to grandfathering in what they thought was their livestock water through irrigation?
You know, I've had to ask, and I don't think legally we can grandfather. It has to be a different use.
So these would be brand new water rights if they choose to go that route.
Correct, what you put them in the lower priority is a junior right to the current standard. Yeah,
Approximately what percentage of the current ag water users have a specific degree for stock water?
I actually looked this up. I have 295 decreed stock water rights for our district. It sounds like a lot, but I don't have that many people using it. A lot of our people have that right, but they water elsewhere. So I only have a handful of active ditches right now. By about 10, 12.
Oh, really?
Which is surprising, but our valley is really narrow and a lot of people run a stream or tributary or the river itself.
That's good. So is there a call or a use that is being, when you shut off the livestock water, is that so someone else could have more water, or is there an in-stream flow, or what is it that you're?
It's for the water can be fulfilled to the calling right, which right now is the turbine at County Reservoir.
Okay.
So until they get the amount of senior rights that they have for their water rights, we'll have the calling place.
And do you think that's all drought related? I mean, we've never had it happen before in the White for 160 years.
I think it plays into it, but not all. If you look through our historical records, our river doesn't typically run double what it is right now. I think it's adding to it, but it definitely is not completely drought related. And from what I've seen.
So that turbine call is probably pretty junior in the big scheme of things, but you're shutting off the stock water because they actually don't have the.
Correct. Yeah. Yep, the turbine called in 1966, so it hits about midway on our priority list. So I'd say half of our users are junior, half are senior. Or users is the wrong word, half of our water rights are senior.
So are there any people with water rights that are junior to that 63 that you shut off? Well,
Yes,
and they're still this winter even.
and like I say, the community's been really well to work with. Like I have 2 ditches that just shut off voluntarily. And that I did not include in my CFS total because they have the right to turn back on. Because they have that stock water right. It's just, they were willing to do it. I don't know if they didn't want to fight the ice.
And so I didn't hear everything you said, but do you see the light at the end of the tunnel? Is there an end game here?
I think the call will come off the river as high water hits. And when high water comes back down and we're not meeting that 620 CFS, the call will come back on. And on a second note, it gets kind of in depth. There's a junior call that the turbine can have as well. So we have to hit their senior call, then we hit their junior call, then the call on the river will come on. So we'll have a little bit of free water, but not all year round like we have that.
So the 620 is both those together, or
That's just my senior one.
what's the junior one?
The junior one is 125 of absolute right return, in addition to that 620, so we're looking at 745. Which is a lot considering today we're probably running right at 400.
What's that 16 CFS coming from up by meter or above meter?
Yep, it's right there around meter.
And anybody squawking about fuel calls yet? Or
We heard the scuttle. But, and we had the discussion, Aaron and I discussed it, we brought Kevin and Brian into the conversation. We don't feel it's a fuel call, because we can curtail some water to assist with that call. So it doesn't fit the typical fuel. Yeah. There's a lot of scuttle going on about this for sure.
And you're doing a great job answering all these questions. Too. She is. Kudos to you. Yeah.
Thanks. I've had a pretty good trainer.
Aaron, Betty, is that it?
That's it for me.
That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you. I asked one more question. So when that happened in the Yampa Valley, one of the biggest issues was measuring devices not being in place. How is that in the White River?
I'd say we're the same as Yampa, if not worse. We have a lot of users that don't have head gates or standard device. So we have till irrigation season starts to get those in place. So we're really pushing people to hurry up, find them, get a plan. I mean, weather is a big factor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody's, Doug's got a hand up.
So just real quickly, so we went through this stock water rights in the Yampa Valley as well. And I think it's something the legislature might need to address. That, when the original rights were filed for, they were ag purposes. We've been through the discussions with Erin and her offices and the rest. But, when we filing for a junior stock water right at this point in time is ludicrous. So I just think that, when my being a fourth generation, when my great grandparents filed for their water rights, they filed for ag water rights, and they filed for the water to run through the ditch so they could irrigate it and keep them off the river. So I think we still have some discussion that might need to be had at some point in time and provide, and Erin's doing her job. I'm not discounting what she's doing, but I think we still might have some discussion on what's right and what was originally filed at that point in time in 1908. Thank you.
I agree entirely, and I don't know if that's something that you guys as your committee can help address. As far as, I feel bad for the people that have a very senior water right, but can't use it to water their cows. I mean, it's hard, and it's really hard to talk to those people. So it'd be wonderful if they could do some legislation or changes to assist those water users.
Chair of the Senate Ag Committee, see what he says.
Would also suggest getting a few of these folks to talk to the River District. I'll visit with them next week.
And
But I know they were influential the last time, because I believe this did go around to her, and correct me if I'm wrong. I thought there was an opportunity 5 years ago, and there was some issue going on about, where they would allow grandfathering in if you could show some evidence of use.
Yeah.
And I don't know the specifics of it, but I remember the rumblings of it, so.
I don't think that was a statewide thing. I think that was strictly through the type of call that was on the river.
It could be.
And
Yeah.
so I think it would benefit Yampa as well if we could get something.
No. Okay.
Alden, I'd like to jump in here, and you are right that we went through a process, but recognize that you can get grandfathered under 1023B, so 3792 1023B, which is associated with CWCB in-stream flow water rights only. And so that would not apply here because that 102.3B literally only applies to CWCB and streamflow water rights. So that's why we can confidently say there's no grandfathering clause here in this situation. I will also add that, you know, Betty did a lot of research on those ditches that were running water to try to really check all the boxes and make sure that they weren't decreed in some way for livestock watering. And, you know, Doug mentioned the word agriculture, and one water right that she found was decreed for agriculture. And we interpret agriculture to include irrigation and livestock. And so they were allowed to continue to divert. The other thing to recognize is we allow livestock to drink from a ditch when it's running for irrigation. And so when we hear and think of the word irrigation and the use of irrigation, we assume it's during irrigation season. And that was the intent of the water right when it was decreed, was for use during irrigation season. So people can water their livestock from their ditch during irrigation season, but once irrigation season is over, the use of that water right is done. And that's why we curtail further use beyond the irrigation season for livestock watering.
Aaron, what's that typical date, October 1?
There's really not a typical date. I mean, it's really when you feel it just the application of water to that irrigation use no longer aids in the growth and greening of a crop. That can be caused by low temperatures or a soil moisture profile that's already full. And those are the things I've gone through to evaluate when I've actually deemed irrigation season over, as I look at overnight lows and whether or not a particular ditch has been running for a long period of time such that its soil moisture profile is full.
Last but certainly not least.
I know we're short on time. We'll try to be quick. Tom is going to lead off. There are three things in the BRC IBCC report. The recent development in the Bureau Upper Colorado River Commission land leasing and funding issue. There's the supplemental EIS around the post 2026 operating guidelines. And then there's our basin position paper, which I want to just catch up real quick. We had a really good session today on that. And so I can give you just a short overview of kind of what the direction is heading there. But first, I hate like heck dropping this big old bombshell on the crowd at the 11th hour, but I don't think there's anything for it but to go ahead. So Tom, hit it.
So you want me to talk about the
Bureau and the UCRC, yeah.
Okay, so the Upper Basin, Colorado River Basin, now I'm like Jackie, I can't say the right word, UCRC, which is the commission that oversees the Colorado Compact in the Upper Basin. And they have accepted from the Bureau of Reclamation $135 million to begin in 2023 and as early as February, leasing ag land to fallow it and let it in 2023 and let the water run down into Lake Powell. It's not demand management. Under demand management, if you remember, that water would have, the conserved consumptive use would have accrued to the benefit of the Upper Basin, stored in Lake Powell to meet compact obligations when needed. This is a system conservation program, which just paying operators to not irrigate and the water flows into Lake Powell and be a flow through just like any other water flows into Lake Powell, based on release criteria. Bureau of Reclamation uses with their drought contingency program, however much money they money too, but water that they decide to release to Lake Mead and then be used in the Illinois Basin. So that's a big deal. They when it first came out, it looked like it was kind of a free for all. There were no sideboards of how such a program would be administered But I think since then, the Colorado River District and the Colorado Water Conservation Board have tentatively, they haven't officially, but tentatively been given the approval process of any ag lease, any water leases, how they will be structured. If either one of those entities doesn't agree with it, then it will have to be changed to meet some kind of a process. So those two entities, I'm sure Jackie, jump in, the CWCB is probably working madly on what this program would look like. And I know Alden and Doug and I are all on the River District board, and we just got our board packets, which we meet next Tuesday. There's a big section in there where the River District will be working, trying to come up with some kind of a matrix for how ag leasing should happen, how it could be equitable and fair, all kinds of things. Whether it's going to be administered when someone leases their water, or whether it's just going to be in the system, like all other water is in the system. There's more things that we don't know than we know, other than what I've told you about basics. And this was all brought about, of course, by the dire levels of water in the two reservoirs that supply the lower basin. And so something had to be done to keep hydropower running, to keep some water for the lower basin, because they were actually faced with, when you see those lakes, they're faced with no water nearly, and it could be, although the way that white stuff outside is piling up, that's some relief. It's not a cure, it's not a magic bullet where it's not good to go, but it's certainly better than seeing it like we did last year. Anyway, jump in, Jeff. I probably forgot it.
I got.
That's a good summary. Go ahead, Mike.
I do. So on the sideboards, so I've looked at this. And there wasn't very many sideboards on it or whatever. Are you saying that they're gonna allow Colorado River District and CWCB to actually alter some of that a little bit to, so like one of the issues I had was $150 an acre foot. And as somebody that's done a water lease, to me, that's not only a no, that's a hell no, because that's not near enough. I mean, I won't give water for $150 an acre foot. And then I won't go full fallow because I think it's a soil. So does that give you guys, can you set those perimeters now?
We think we can.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Next week. I think we're going, you were on the stakeholder group that worked with the river, worked with Andy on creating the strong man punching bag.
Right.
I think that will be the template that we work off of. And I seen in my packet today, it includes the suggestions that we'll start with, and work through it. Just include most of what were in your guidelines that you guys, because that was a really good.
It was basically the only one that's in the state. Right?
It had any significance, yeah. And so my guess is that all of those questions you brought up and 1,000 more that we all have of how the sideboard would look.
Right.
Everything would probably be, but at least we have a local entity, and of course, let me be specific, but this is Colorado or Upper Basin wide, I mean, Colorado's percentage of their, they don't, of the Colorado compact, which is 51%. We assume, so Colorado, meaning in this case, Colorado Basin, the Southwest Colorado Basin, to some degree, and then the TMDs will need to participate. The river districts sphere of what they have to pull is anything within that district. CWCB would also go. Those are the two entities that they agreed, and Becky Mitchell with the Colorado River Commission, of course, like I said, and the river district agreed that that was a good way to go. So
I feel better about that statement now. So move forward.
Yeah. Okay.
Jackie, I think I saw your hand up and put it down. Still got something on your mind?
I was just gonna basically give a similar answer from my understanding of SCPP that the 150 isn't the last offer, right? That you can justify or make a justification for more money, whether or not that means they accept your application over someone else's is another question. The other thing that I was going to say is that I think what might, one of the reasons why our board will see these applications come in is also that the HCU will be protected for the year of the non-use as well. Which may, for some people, historic consumptive use.
Thank you.
Yep.
So the question I think on this topic is the horse out of the barn and the corral and all the way into the pasture? Or is he just out of the barn and in the corral, and can we get a rope around at least some aspects of this thing, Mike? And the optimists in the group believe that we can, through the River District and CWCB, set up some constraints on the way we're going to manage this. If you stop and think about it, folks, we've been talking about demand management for 2.5, almost 3 years. A bunch of people who really know a lot about water have ground and reached the point of saying, boy, we don't really see how we can really make this work. Bureau of Reclamation swung the sword, cut the Gordian knot and said, here's $125 million. We're going to lease some land, take the water off. So now the question is, can we find ways to at least mitigate some of the damage that impact is going to have? Okay, the Bureau has also implemented a program to put together a supplemental environmental impact statement that will inform the process for developing the 2026, post-2026 interim guidelines. We've talked before that, we're replacing the 2007 interim guidelines. Those are in the process of being redesigned. There is a supplemental environmental impact statement project, which will have a lot to do with guiding that. Patrick will have by morning the documents from some front range water districts and the official Colorado position on the scope of that supplemental EIS. Tom and I talked about mainly just emailing you guys all that stuff. We just couldn't bring ourselves to do it, but that is good reading. So please, if you can find the way, take the time to go to the website and find those documents. Becky Mitchell and the staff have written a really good summary of the constraints around that. It's easy to see how that EIS could get out of control and drive almost in total, the post 2026 guidelines. So they're doing a good job of trying to constrain that, I think.
Well, I'm probably gonna have to ask this next week, but does Colorado need to have anything part of that EIS?
In what sense?
When they're reviewing that, doing that EIS, that EIS they're doing is gonna be very broad.
Yes.
Does Colorado have anything that would fit into that EIS that would fall? And I hate to drag the EIS even bigger, but if they're looking at making a change to that system down there, how is that system going to impact our system up here?
Well, I think that's almost the whole point.
And I know, but I'm trying to figure out how best to ask that question.
I think if you can read that document, what Commissioner Mitchell is saying is confine that to the operation of those two reservoirs.
Okay.
And because if it does expand upstream from that, you can easily see how that could kind of take on a life of its own and really impose a bunch more constraints around that, the operating guidelines.
Yep.
So read that. Okay, last but not least, you all received a draft of our position statement. That thing was really geared towards two things, towards the short-term drought relief and response to the short-term crisis and the post-2026 guidelines We had a great session today, at editing and we've received editorial comments from others, Jackie and Al included. To make the words better, make the document clearer. The main thing that happened in the Big River Committee meeting today, I think there's real strong consensus on the direction that the paper is going to go. The main thing that happened today was moving some of those post-2026 ideas into the short term. Because the truth, you guys, is that 2027 is a long ways away for the way things are moving on the river right now. So 3 of the parameters that we were thinking about for the guidelines, we have moved into, at least some aspects have moved into the current short-term and drought relief. And what you're going to get from the Big River Committee, we hope, in the next couple of days is a redraft or draft of that document. And what we would like to do is be able to have the board members use that draft to help them guide discussions at the River District Board meeting, which starts next week. So you're going to get that redraft in the next couple of days. We made good progress on that. If you have comments, don't hesitate to fire away.
Jackie's got a comment here in the box. I want to read this. And I'm pretty sure we're not doing this, but still. I think it's important to note that the SCPP isn't demand management as constructed in the DCP, the drought contingency plan. It is SCPP. I think she's got an extra P because it's not pilot.
Yeah, it's not a pilot
It's
anymore.
not a pilot anymore, but it is SCP, and trying to make SCP demand management right now is unlikely or wise.
Unlikely or unwise.
Unwise. Did I say, no, I said it wrong. But anyway,
Okay.
trying to make SCPP demand management is not a good thing to do, and we're not. Not from what I'm understanding.
Well, as Jackie's exactly right, as a practical matter, there's really no way to do that. But I think our goal, and I put words in Tom's mouth, and then you can say whether they taste very good or not. I think our goal, we know that SCP is one of the lousiest ways to incentivize more efficient and better use of a water resource, right? There's nothing about it really that helps in that way. It's simply a matter of moving water from one region to another. To the extent that we can put sideboards on that, that's the task ahead. Tom?
No, I think that's right. Yeah, SCP is the way it's gonna roll out here, is just transferring water from our fields to the lower basin. And no storage account, and that's a much poorer system for us, to our benefit, than demand management would be, where at least we could save some water stored up and use it to meet compact obligation in the future, rather than just let it go. But that's what this is SCP right now. But I think our position paper says, and we've asked to get it modified, from what we suggested in the Big River Committee, and at least Doug and Alden and I can take it to the River District and say, here's where the Yampa kind of wants to be. And Jackie, I think, giving it to you as well, because I know you guys are gonna have this kind of discussion. Because we thought better to be on the record now when the cookies are being baked than and the batter's being mixed up than a month from now when we've had a chance to have a meeting sometime down the road. So we kind of seen the urgency, but I guess, Jackie, to you, you're absolutely right. This is different than demand management, and trying to change it to demand management right now. We don't have the power or the ability. I'd love to, but I don't think we can do that. But we need to keep, I think we need to keep it on the table with this demand management, where we get to keep, let it accrue to our storage account is much better than just drying up land to send. And we also, which I know I've heard you, Jackie, say that on our Lower Basin trip many times, and we all did, is while we've had an extensive drought, the real problem, the real crisis is not a supply problem. No, it's an overuse problem in the Lower Basin. And I'm offended, actually, that we are in the Upper Basin having used less than half of our, or about half of our compact amount that we
Allocation.
allocation, and much less than that in dry years like 2021. That we're now saying, there's a big problem, you gotta bail us out.
Yep, yeah, very no.
But that's, those are all just statements that we all wanna make. Not gonna, well, what,
I got
whoever means
two
to,
folks up here. I've got
sorry.
Jackie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I guess that's my point, is I look at SCPP as a stopgap of some sort of good faith offering. And, you know, I was surprised, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to make the Big River meeting. I had work today that prevented me from doing it, but I was surprised to read that it seemed like this basin was endorsing demand management, and for the reasons that Tom just mentioned, I guess I'm surprised that we want to go down that path. And I guess I'm still a believer that demand management is basically saying that we're going to come to the table with additional water to give to the lower basin when they still haven't gotten their supply in check, or their use in check. And so maybe that will be clarified in the next draft. But I mean, if you guys are telling me that you want demand management, then that is new information to me.
Oh, I don't know who goes first right now.
I'll just be really brief. I think what Tom was trying to say, and what we all agreed on, was that demand management would be better, because at least the water is accounted for, it's administered, and it's stored in Lake Powell. As we understand it, the system conservation project, that water is just sent down the river.
Yeah.
Period. It's not even, we don't, as we understand it, maybe Aaron can clear this up. It's not even administered. It's just put in the river. I'll go ahead. That's all.
Well, Jackie, do you have a response?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And I guess I would just go back to it being a stopgap. Yeah, I understand it's not a pilot when you do it, you know, in its 5th year at this point. But I think it's, if you look at the 5-point plan, it's one of the 5 points for a reason. It's not demand management for a reason. And I guess I'm just like, I mean, I'm speaking just as Jackie, not as CWCB when I say this, that trying to turn SCPP into a more robust program, not that it shouldn't have, you know, that's what makes it doable, is that we don't have the measurement to take this water off the tributaries and measure and be able to record what exactly we're giving. We just can't. That was the problem with demand management. And so we still have the same problem. You know, it'll be interesting to see if we get all the same takers, but I mean, this is a much longer discussion than what we have time for 15 minutes after the meeting ended, but I think it's worth having at some point, however that takes place. And I'm sure for those of you that, again, will be at Water Congress, you'll have many opportunities to talk to people and you know, listen to what others have to say about that, and not just take my, you know, kind of 9:15 p.m. off the cuff remarks on it.
Tom has a response.
Well, Jack, I guess when I seen the 5 points, the Upper Basin said we would engage in a pilot SCPP, a pilot project to see what we could do. But the 125 million is for an SCP, just a program. And over 2 years, 125 million is 833,000 acre feet that we would conserve. That's not a pilot to me. And so yeah, I'm not a big proponent of demand management. It's the worst thing there is, except that worst. It's the worst thing there is, except for SCP in my mind. So we're stuck with it. The best that I can see that we can do, and you'll be intimately involved in that, is crafting some sideboards that don't there aren't owners, that are equitable, that don't put it in a place you don't want to be in the future. And I'm really thankful that some local basins through the roundtable, or excuse me, through the River District and through the CWCB have the ability throw ore in the water and try to come up with something that's the best we can do, given what we're, given that amount of money going into that one.
Doug, I'm sorry, Doug, do you have something? You had your hand up there a bit, bud.
No, so I agree with everything Tom and Jackie said too. So we don't agree with SCPP, but demand management is a lot better than SCPP because at least we know who owns the water. So, you know, it goes into the system. We don't own the water anymore. So we'll just be come back to, you know, drain from us again. So no, I'm fine. Thank you.
I got one more comment before I wrap up with this piece here is, I thought we were past the point where we can say, hell no, not another drop. This is our water. Live within your own damn means like we have to. Right. And I thought we were past that point, but if I understand what Jackie's saying, that may not be off the table. If I missed that somewhere, please point it out to me, because I thought we were past that point. Especially from reading what responses I got from the UCRC and from the state of Colorado. And I'm looking at the best alternative that we can come forward as a base roundtable is demand management. Or drought contingency plan, which demand management part of it. And at least that keeps us in the conversation, where the other conversation right now with SCP is like, here's your money, send her on down the river, thanks. I mean, at least the demand management DCP keeps it local in Colorado, where SCP, well, that's a federal issue. So I don't know if I missed something with that, so I look forward to hearing what the River District says, because now I got some comments, some better comments. So anyway, we're gonna wrap up. I want to thank everybody for the very heartfelt comments and feedback that you all gave. This is why the base roundtable is for, us to bring some passion to the table. It's been a while, but we've got some crap happening, and it ain't fun. And it's gonna have some impacts, as I've said before. So we're gonna talk with you all in March 8th, and we'll see what we have for updates then. But I know we've got some committee meetings that'll happen in between there. The committees could really use your help, even if you just listen in. You don't have to participate and say anything like on the Big River Committee. It's information to help make us have a better meeting in here. So, all right. Have a nice evening. Good night.
Did you just give us?
Absolutely. Is that better?